I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Call in or text to 661-842-KERN. That's 661-842-5376. Listen live at KERNradio.com. Now, the host you've been waiting all day for. Live from the KERN studio, here's Ralph Bailey.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Clayton Campbell pinch hitting for Ralph Bailey. He's out this week. As you've probably noticed, if you've been listening regularly, Ralph always gets these guest hosts who do a great job. And so here I've got to fill some big shoes, not just his, but theirs as well. So bear with me. Today, we're going to be talking about an issue that's been of great concern to many citizens, many law enforcement types, the DA's office, the police department, the sheriff's department, and everyone in this community and other communities who value their privacy. We're going to be talking about flock cameras. Somewhere between your driveway this morning, when you left for work or school or the grocery store, and wherever you're sitting right now, there was a camera that almost certainly took a picture of you, or at least your car. Not a red light camera, unless you were running a red light, not a traffic camera, but a license plate reader, one of about 130 that the Bakersfield Police Department has mounted at various intersections around the city of Bakersfield. These cameras are made by a company called Flock Safety. Most of them run on solar power. They sit on a pole, they work around the clock, and they do not need a police officer standing anywhere nearby to monitor them. And here's what happens when you pass one. It takes a picture of your vehicle. It reads your plate using AI. It records the make, model, and color of your car, and also things that the company calls a vehicle's blueprint, including whether you have roof racks or a missing panel or a dent, or multicolor car because you got a spare part, a bumper sticker that you put on there that you forgot about. And then it files all this into a searchable database along with the date, the time, and the location of the image. It does this to every car. It doesn't just take pictures of the cars that belong to criminals or even cars that belong to suspects. It takes pictures of every car, yours, mine, the minivan full of kids that was in front of you on Ming Avenue this morning. Now, nobody in the city voted on this. The people of this town, most of us, have never even noticed that these cameras exist. And here's something that might surprise you. As of today, the Supreme Court of the United States has not found any part of this unconstitutional. So today we're going to spend some time on the issue of flock cameras and security versus liberty. We're going to talk about the surveillance state, the new technology that's been applied. We'll talk about some constitutional law, and we'll talk about political philosophy, because the question that's underneath all of these issues is not a new question. This is not a new argument. The hardware is new, the technology is new, but the argument is about as old as government itself. We're not going to go back to the beginning of government, but we're going to go back and we'll talk about Thomas Hobbes. He wrote in 1651, he was an English political philosopher. He wrote that without a strong government, life, in his words, is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. His answer was that people will rationally trade a great deal of their liberty in exchange for order, because without security, nothing else is possible. You can't own property, you can't raise a family, you can't build a business, you can't live. John Locke, he came at it differently. If you're an American, you already think like Locke, whether you've ever read anything he wrote or not. Locke said that you have natural rights. This is written in our Declaration of Rights in the California Constitution. It's written in our Declaration of Independence, our founding documents. Life, liberty, and property, or as it's written in the Declaration, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are natural rights that exist before any government exists. Government isn't doing you a favor by protecting them. As Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence, governments are instituted among men to preserve and protect and guarantee these rights. It doesn't give them to us. Government exists to secure those rights. Protecting them is the whole job of government. And the control that you have over your own person, your papers, and your effects, to use the words of the Fourth Amendment, that's not a gift from the state. That's yours. That idea is written right into the Fourth Amendment. Then there was another political philosopher, 1859, John Stuart Mill wrote, he added that the piece that matters most for a conversation about, basically he wrote this part that is the most important part for the modern surveillance question. He argued that there's an inward domain. That's your thoughts, your tastes, your associations, the pursuits nobody else has any business regulating. Those are yours. And protecting those, the internal domain, the inward domain, protecting that is not a courtesy to the individual. It's a precondition for a society that can think, argue, disagree, and correct itself. If you take away the private sphere, what he called the inward domain, you haven't just lost privacy. You've lost the conditions that make free debate possible in a society in the first place. Now, here's the thing about all three of these philosophers. You don't have to choose between them. You already, to a certain extent, agree with them, probably in the order that I just listed them. You agree with Hobbes, because nobody in this town or in this country wants a city that doesn't have a police department or any kind of security or any rules. We all want there to be police, the fire department, rules, prosecutors, judges. When someone kicks in your door at 2 a.m, you're not going to call a philosopher. You're going to want a patrol car with an armed officer there, and you're going to want him fast. That's Hobbes, and there's nothing embarrassing about wanting that. We all want that. We want some security. But we also, everybody here, including you, agrees with Locke. You don't think government is doing you a favor by leaving you alone. You think the government owes it to you to leave you alone. That's the default. And if they come knocking on your door, the government, that is, they better have a good reason. And then you agree with John Stuart Mill as well to an extent, whether you've heard him or read his work or not. There are things about your life that are nobody's business. Nobody has business reading your thoughts or tracking everything you do. Not because it's illegal, what you're thinking or doing, but because it's yours. Now, those three philosophies are all true at the same time, in the same person, sitting in the same truck, listening to this show. That means the argument was never Hobbes versus Locke. The argument is, where do we draw the line? And that's where it gets uncomfortable. So that's where I'm going to kind of push in this show. We're going to talk about some things that are uncomfortable. Later on, I'm going to have the chief of the Bakersfield Police Department, Brent Stratton. He's going to join us to talk about some of these things, and flock cameras in particular. If you follow this line of thinking out far enough, everyone will have to agree something to a certain extent on this topic. Eventually, some crime is going to happen, right? So we can have absolute security where there's a camera in everybody's car, everybody's house. You have to blow into a device to start your car, whether you ever touched a drop of alcohol or not. You're constantly monitored, and the government is given a report on how fast you drive, what food you eat, what websites you visit, what you talk about, what you think, right? That would be the absolute security state, and nobody wants that. And we know that if we have to protect a certain amount of liberty, then that means somebody is going to get away with a crime somewhere. We cannot have absolute obedience to the law, absolute justice on every crime, and at the same time have freedom of thought, freedom of movement, and freedom in general. So it's not because we don't care about the victims of crime. We care about burglary victims. We care about the battered spouses. But as a society, over several centuries, without taking a vote on it necessarily, we've decided that a society with zero crime would be a society that none of us would want to live in. Even in the most oppressive regimes, communist Russia, the Third Reich, there was still crime. There were instances of burglaries and murders and thefts, even with an overbearing nanny state that took away all of the freedom of its citizens. So we have to accept there's going to be some danger in society. There's going to be some crime. There's going to be some violation of property rights. It's just something that we have agreed as a As a society, we've agreed that we can tolerate a certain amount of it because we value our freedom. So the honest question today was never, do you want to be safe? Everybody wants to be safe. The question is, what is the price that we're willing to pay for our safety? Who's paying it? And who decided that? Benjamin Franklin famously said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Now, he wasn't saying that in the context of surveillance, but the same principle still applies. The modern debate has taken a very interesting turn. There's a security expert by the name of Bruce Schneier who has argued for years that tried to frame the debate as something between privacy versus security. He thinks that's wrong. He thinks that there are measures that cost us privacy, bulk data collection, weakened encryption, giant centralized databases. He thinks that these things don't give us much actual security. Sometimes they reduce security because now we've built one giant target for anybody who wants to break in. You know, you've all gotten these emails reporting that there's been a data breach somewhere. You need to change your password because, you know, some big company that had some of your data had a breach. Some bad actor broke into their database. So that does exist in the world. And so he's saying that it's not security versus privacy, it's liberty versus control. There's a sociologist by the name of, I don't know, I read his name on the internet, so I don't know how to pronounce this. It's Amitai Etzioni. He says, he's got a different approach. He says both individual rights and common good are legitimate. You can't always maximize both. So the honest work is figuring out the balance case by case. And he gives us some questions to ask. Is there a documented serious threat? Are there less intrusive ways to address it? Are the privacy costs proportionate? And is anybody actually watching the watchers? These are his questions that he asks, and he encourages us all to consider those questions when we ask these questions. So here we are in 2026. This is not just a left versus right argument. There are people, the ACLU on the political left, they've been fighting against license plate readers for years. There are people on the right. I'm an avid reader of the National Review magazine. I listen to their podcast all the time. One of their writers, Christian Schneider, he wrote an article a couple years ago called "A Digital Surveillance State Won't Make Us Any Safer," where he makes some excellent arguments against erring on the side of law enforcement and crime control at the cost of our personal security and liberty. So now here we are. We got these different sides of the political aisle taking different approaches to the same problem, balancing security and freedom. And that's where we are reminded that this is not a debate that's a new thing that's just come up in the last few years. This is a debate that's gone back to the American founding. We had the Fourth Amendment, which was passed in the Bill of Rights right after the Constitution was ratified. 10 amendments were added to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. The Fourth Amendment is the one that protects us from unreasonable searches and seizures, requires a warrant for intrusions into our privacy. And it doesn't ban searching. It doesn't ban all intrusions into our privacy. It bans unreasonable searches. And so the framers had a balancing test written into the Constitution, and they've left that to every generation to work out what's reasonable based on the tools of the day. Our generation's tools take a picture of your car hundreds of times a day, perhaps. So that's what we're doing. That's what these cameras may or may not be able to do. It's a debate that's still going on. And so later in the show, we'll bring in Bakersfield Police Chief Brent Stratton. We'll talk about the approach the Bakersfield Police has taken to this question. We'll talk about some of these political theory and constitutional concepts. You're listening to the Ralph Bailey Show on KERN. If you want to call us to talk about this, call 661-842-5376. We'll be back shortly.
Kern Radio, News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230, KERN. Maxwell in the morning, good till the last mic drop.
Dr. Sam Woggood, transfer to the University of California at San Francisco, was asked, can only women get pregnant? And that was asked by Representative Mary Miller. You know what? He couldn't answer it. That's what I'm talking about, because everybody listening to me right now knows that only women can get pregnant in the human race.
Weekdays 9 to noon, News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230, KERN.
It must be nice to be able to retire like Serena Williams and then say, I'm unretired. But for most of us, that's not the case. When we hang it up, that's about it. That's why you've got to be prepared for the late fourth quarter in your lives. And that's why I always stress that the smartest financial move I have ever made happened about 10 years ago when I became a client at Messmaker and Petrie Wealth Advisors. And the other thing I always remind you about, I've turned on colleagues here at American General Media to Daniel, and they could not be happier about what Daniel has done for them financially. Call Daniel Petrie at 395-9400, 395-9400, or just tune in on Thursdays. He appears here every Thursday at 4:30, and his office is located right on the corner of 21st and Oak. Daniel Petrie and the folks at Messmaker and Petrie Wealth Advisors.
This broadcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice or a solicitation for advisory services by Daniel Petrie or MPWA Incorporated, DBA, Messmaker, and Petrie Wealth Advisors. The program host is a client and receives compensation and other financial benefits in connection with this advertisement, creating a conflict of interest. Experiences discussed may not be representative of other clients.
Look, folks, you already know that your garage door is a very important part of your home, from the overall look of the place to the safety and security it provides. So obviously, you should only trust the service, repair, and maintenance of your garage door to the pros at King Door Company. Their skill and product knowledge are unmatched in the industry, and that's no accident. The techs at King Door are rigorously trained at the King Door Academy. That's right. King Door has an in-house training facility to make sure your job is done right on the first try. They're trained in all the latest equipment, tools, and techniques. They even learn how to listen to customer concerns through role-playing exercises. And you'll see how well all this training works when they show up right on time in fully stocked service trucks with all the parts and equipment to service or repair any garage door. Like I said, your garage door is a very important part of your home, so leave it to the pros at King Door Company. Schedule your appointment today at kingdoor.com. King Door Company, the company with the pride of a lion. Thank you, Kern County. Steve Holloway Painting and Concrete Coatings is proudly celebrating 45 years of serving our community, and they're celebrating with a special anniversary offer. Be one of the first 10 homeowners to reserve your October or November painting or concrete coating project and enjoy 2 years of interest-free financing. Whether it's interior or exterior painting, cabinet refinishing, or beautiful decorative concrete coatings, trust the company that's been taking care of business for 45 years. Book today at stevehollowaypainters.com.
In 2026, Bay Alarm celebrates 80 years of security. For the Central Valley, that means local service including burglar and fire alarm systems, 24/7 in-house monitoring, and custom security designed to work with business operations. Bay Alarm has real people rooted in your community looking out for your business. After 8 decades and 3 generations of family ownership, our promise is still the same. We got you. Learn more at bayalarm.com.
Hey folks, Scott Cox here, host of the First Look with Scott Cox radio program. You are listening to the Ralph Bailey Show right here on Newstalk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERS.
Welcome back to the Ralph Bailey Show. I'm Clayton Campbell, filling in for Ralph. We are talking about flock cameras today. If you want to join us on the show, call in at 842-5376. You can also send a text message to that number if you have a question or a comment, or you want to weigh in on this debate about flock cameras. What is a flock camera? Let's talk about the technology specifically. I kind of went long in that last segment, and we have a break at 3:30, so I just want to make sure that we know what we're talking about before we take the longer news break here. What is a flock camera? Now, we all know that these digital cameras are out there. You've seen cameras at intersections. You've seen red light cameras. You've probably seen them flash. Hopefully not when you drove through them. But when I see those, I've had clients come to me and they get the video from I think it's Redflex is the name of the company that makes those cameras or something. It's something like that. But they bring in a video and that was sent to them, or they have a link to it, and we go watch the video, and you get to see the picture of the driver driving right through the red light, and it's a great view of them, and they use that image to identify the driver. They compare it to a driver's license photograph. They get the license plate number off the car, and then they look at the registration, and then they mail the ticket to you with the red light camera. And they're very high resolution cameras. I mean, they've got a great shot of the driver. It's usually pretty obvious who the driver is. By the way, if you get one of those tickets, you should call my friend Mark Bigger. He's a traffic ticket ninja. He and Paul Harmon, these two guys are amazing lawyers that handle traffic tickets, and they'll help you. They're my family's attorney. You know, I joke with my daughter. I tell her, I'm having lunch with your lawyer today, and he's been a friend of mine for nearly 30 years, but he's Mark Bigger, excellent at these tickets. So anyway, if you get a red light ticket, call him, and he'll try to get you out of it. But at any rate, you get these cameras. They take a high resolution picture. They get a video of your car driving by. It's got a great view of your car, the front of the vehicle, the license plate number, and they're angled in such a way as to avoid having the sun glare off your window, so they can actually see who the driver is, and then they mail the ticket to you. So that's not what I'm talking about. That's not a flock camera. That's the red light ticket camera. There's a different controversy on that. Some of the same issues are involved here. Those actually only trigger when somebody actually violates the law, allegedly. I mean, they go through the light, you don't come to a complete stop, it detects that, it's got a motion sensor on it and a radar, and it determines that you ran the red light, and it only triggers when all the right circumstances occur. It's not recording everyone that goes through the intersection. Now, a flock camera is different. A flock camera is a solar-powered camera on a pole. They usually put them in intersections in the public right-of-way. They run 24 hours a day. They don't have an officer present monitoring them. They're just posted, and they are constantly working. And then they wirelessly transmit whatever data they record to a central server. It takes a picture of everybody, every vehicle that goes through, not just suspects, not just criminals. That's the thing that's the most important part of this entire analysis when it comes to the constitutionality of this type of technology, is what exactly does it record and how is that data used. The camera doesn't decide who's interesting. Like I said, it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't discern between one car and another. It just automatically tracks every license plate. Now, it's not just the plate, and I don't. This will be a good question for Chief Stratton when he comes in. Is there an image? Is it kind of like the traffic cameras where it's trying to get the license plate, but it also might capture your face? I'd like to know whether it does that. Does it catch a video, or is it only a still image? I'd like to know these things. I don't know the answer. We'll ask him. I'm sure he knows. He's got to be very familiar with this technology. So it also tracks what's called a fingerprint of your vehicle. So if you have like a scratch, like I said earlier, a scratch or a dent or a bumper sticker or some kind of distinguishing mark on the vehicle, it'll record that. And then it has that recorded in a database, so that if they didn't get a read on the plate, let's say you didn't have a plate on the car, it's a stolen car, but it's got all the right characteristics, then you call your car, report your car stolen. You say, well, it's missing, or it's got a dent in the rear quarter panel, or a big scratch over the left, driver's side front wheel. Then there's it'll look for those kind of features. That would be something that it would record. So if it doesn't get a clean read on the plate, it's still going to record this fingerprint of the vehicle. Now, there's some functions that these cameras are used for, and so this is important to understand the difference. There's a real-time alert that could be triggered. So they have what they call a hot list, vehicles that are of interest to the police. They'll say an Amber Alert. They've reported a kidnapping, and there's a particular vehicle make and model with a license plate number. That goes into this database on the hot list. And so when the camera sees that, it immediately notifies the agency to put the vehicle on the hot list. Hey, we just saw this car with this license plate number in this location. And then they can respond accordingly. That's the hot list. It wouldn't just be an Amber Alert. It'd be any vehicle they're looking for: a stolen car, a car that was seen fleeing a scene. Maybe an officer was pursuing a car and he got away. So it looks like we're running into this break here. So in just a minute here. So anyway, there's the real-time alert for the hot list, and then a retroactive search, which allows an officer, once they discover that a vehicle is a vehicle of interest, they can go into the database and say, I'm looking for this particular vehicle. Where was it and when was it there? And then they can get a response. So those are the two things. And in that second one, that's mainly the issue where the privacy fight is going on. And we'll talk more about that when we come back after the break, because it's pretty complicated and it's fascinating. So I'm Clayton Campbell, filling in for Ralph Bailey on KERN Radio, 96.1 and AM 1230. We'll see you after the break.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. The state of New Mexico has sued the Department of Justice and acting Attorney General Todd Blanche saying the federal government has blocked it from carrying out its own investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's sex crimes. The lawsuit was filed in federal court in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday. Abdul El-Sayed has won Michigan's Democratic nomination for U.S. Senate in a victory for the party's leftist progressive wing in a battleground state. El-Sayed narrowly defeated Congresswoman Haley Stevens and will face Republican Mike Rogers in November. The seat is pivotal to Democrats' chances of flipping the Senate. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 263 points, the Nasdaq dropped 221, with the S&P 500 declining by 12 points. More details at srnnews.com.
Kern Radio, News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230, KERN. Headlines from the KERN Newsroom.
I'm Rob Archer. Firefighters are battling the buzzard fire along the 5 near the Grapevine. A vehicle caught fire. The flames spread into dry grass. An evacuation warning was issued for a nearby area. If you live in the area, stay alert for notifications from Ready Kern. If you're driving, watch for smoke, emergency equipment, and possible lane restrictions. The heat advisory remains in effect until 8 tonight, with Bakersfield again expected to reach the triple digits. Nurses are warning of longer waits and delayed care at Bakersfield Memorial Hospital. Nearly 60 workers were laid off, with Dignity Health saying it's due to financial problems. And a Kern County Sheriff's Sergeant accused of taking evidence from the department's property room will have his preliminary hearing in October. Ryan Dunbeer has pleaded not guilty to 5 charges. I'm Rob Archer in the Kern Newsroom with news every half hour and when it breaks on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
When I hit my 50s, I felt like things were slowing down.
This is Sandra's Metamucil story.
I started taking Metamucil for digestion, but had no idea it would impact so much more. Not only did Metamucil help me feel more regular, but my heart health saw the benefits too.
Metamucil, one simple routine, 4 health benefits. Digestive health starts here. Go to metamucil.com for more details.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You've still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight illnesses like pneumococcal pneumonia and RSV. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and can help protect you from getting really sick. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. See more at PfizerForAll.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
First Look with Scott Cox, mornings 6 to 9 a.m.
On the Thursday edition of the First Look program, it's not a Dr. Corey week, but we got more kids on bikes and fires everywhere, and we got election results. It's just, the world's gone a little bit crazy. We got news and traffic and weather. It's all happening 6 to 9 a.m. right here at News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
Hey, it's JR Flores. Catch my show, The JR Show, starting at 1 p.m. Now back to the Ralph Bailey Show on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Clayton Campbell standing in for Ralph Bailey on the Ralph Bailey Show. We are talking about flock cameras today. If you'd like to join the show, call us at 842-5376 or send a text message. Somebody told me that the sheriff regularly listens to the show, and now I didn't have his number, so I wasn't able to invite him to come in for this interview. Had to get the Bakersfield police chief, so I didn't mean to offend you, Sheriff. If you'd like to join in and give us your 2 bits, I would love to hear from you. What they do, what they don't do. We know they have a hot list where the camera will automatically trigger when there's a suspected license plate or a flagged license plate pops up on one of these, or a vehicle fingerprint, I should say, vehicle fingerprint pops up on one of the cameras. Then it's triggered. The other way is for a police officer, once they're investigating, they discover a license plate of interest or a vehicle fingerprint of interest, they can then query the database and find out where that vehicle has been if it's tripped any of the flock cameras. Now, one question that a lot of privacy concerned people, watchdog groups, etc., one question they're concerned about is data retention. How long will these images sit in the database? Now, the default from Flock, according to their website, is 30 days. California also requires has a limit on retention. It requires agencies to limit how long they hold on. I know that there was a bill that Gavin Newsom vetoed last year. I think it was last year, but he vetoed a bill that would put a much shorter limit on the data retention. And in his veto message, he pointed out that there are cold cases that can sometimes be solved if this data is still around. There may be a clue that pops up in an unsolved murder or something, and if the data's gone, we can no longer access it. Where if it's, say, a fingerprint that's still in a database. Let's say they lift the fingerprint off a crime scene and they can't match it to a suspect. They don't know whose it is. And maybe 20 years goes by before that suspect gets arrested for something else, or their fingerprints show up in a database and are matched to the old evidence. If there was some law requiring us to destroy old fingerprints, we wouldn't be able to match them to cold cases. So that was the rationale for why he thought the data shouldn't be retained for a long time. In the state of Virginia, there's a 21-day limit. And the reason that's important is that there was a case involving Virginia and its retention of data with its flock cameras that the Supreme Court has weighed in on. And so we'll talk about some of those cases later on in the show. Now, it's not just Bakersfield police that have these cameras. These cameras are popular. They're all over the country. And so there's a network. If you're the Federal Bureau of Investigation and you're looking for a particular license plate, you can access the database that has all of this data in it. Now, this raises some questions because there are a lot of people, especially during the Donald Trump presidency, a lot of people on the political left who have suddenly rediscovered federalism and the idea that states have certain rights that are inherent to the states that do not belong to the federal government. And so they've, in an effort to resist Donald Trump's policies, specifically with immigration enforcement and other law enforcement, they will not share information with the federal government. So we talked about this when I covered for J.R. Flores a couple weeks ago. We talked about sanctuary status for the city of Bakersfield. And I pointed out that Bakersfield already is a sanctuary jurisdiction because we're subject to the laws of California, which put limits on what our law enforcement agencies can and can't do as far as sharing information with the federal government. So I'm not sure how that is impacted by the Flock camera database or what Flock uses the data for beyond what the city of Bakersfield wants to use it for. So that's something that I think people need to know about Flock cameras, is that out of those 130 cameras, those images are all stored in a national database held by a private organization. And depending on the subscription you have with Flock, whatever your jurisdiction has, that subscription information can be used, can be shared. All of your data can be shared with other agencies. All right, let's see. What does Flock not do? Well, it's not designed to track all of the movements of any particular person. Now, I suppose if your license plate is on that hot list, it is looking for you. The Flock cameras are looking for you. So to that extent, it would follow you. But it is not, it's not like a dragnet where the cops are following you around and surveilling your every move. And that's constitutionally significant, as you'll see when we discuss some of these cases. All right, now, what are these privacy concerns that people have? I mean, somebody might say, and honestly, well, if you're not breaking the law, why do you care that the government and Flock are tracking your license plate? Why do you care? I mean, after all, you go out in public, you drive your car, and do you particularly mind if somebody notices that you drive by? Some people like to be noticed when they drive by. They crank their music up to a volume that's oppressively loud, and you have to wonder how they can hear anything afterwards. They want you to look at them. They want you to notice them. Some people drive flashy cars. They have obnoxious bumper stickers or provocative bumper stickers. They want to be noticed. Some people don't particularly care whether they're noticed or not. They just live their lives. When I get in the car and I drive to the grocery store, it doesn't occur to me at all whether anybody notices me or my car. I'm just driving. I mean, I do want them to see my car so nobody crashes into me, so that, people observe traffic laws, etc. But I'm not driving to be noticed, and I don't particularly care if I am noticed. So what is the big deal about a license plate reader noticing you? Well, it's not just that you might happen to be noticed and you don't care. It's that they're making a record, and it's hundreds of moments, maybe thousands of moments that the government is recording about your movements and where you're going potentially. And this is something that Justice Sotomayor pointed out in her opinion on one of the recent Supreme Court cases, where she talked about people have a privacy interest in where they go. There are certain things that are not criminal that are nevertheless private. Do you want somebody to know if you're going to the doctor, for example? Let's say you're going to, some people share all of their medical information on Facebook. Some people want to keep it private. Some medical procedures and medical things are very private. Going to your psychiatrist. What if you have an embarrassing medical condition and you're seeking treatment for that? You don't want people to know about that. What if you're having an extramarital affair? Shame on you if you are. But do you really want people to know where you go? You're going to a hotel in the middle of the day? Or what if you go to a strip club? You shouldn't do that either. But if you do that, do you want people to know that? Do you want people to know? What about during COVID, when we had the government trying to regulate every angle of our lives? If you went to church, that was something that there were people that frowned on that. The government tried to stop you from going to church. They actually tried to shut down Grace Community Church in Los Angeles. There was a big legal battle over that. All in the name of public health, the greater good. And so do you want the government to be able to track you? So next time there's a pandemic and they decide to seize all the power and dictate everything you can and can't do with your life, that if you try to go to church, they track your license plate and they know exactly where you went? I don't know. So those are legitimate concerns. Those are things that need to be brought up in the conversation. Now, most of that data that's collected is not connected to any crime. So it's more than 99.9% of the data collected by flock cameras is not connected to any crime. So that's most of the information. The vast majority, very, very tiny percent is actually useful to law enforcement. So when we're balancing our freedom versus our security, the utility to the cops versus the freedom that we have and to have the privacy in what we do, that's a significant number. There are also error rates out of that 0.01% of the data that's actually been triggered. According to Los Angeles Police, the Los Angeles Police Department, they canceled their contract with Flock Safety because they audited the results and they found that only 2 out of 3 of their hot list alerts was valid. So in other words, they would have a hit on a hot list and it was potentially a felony stop, like a stop of someone's vehicle, and they're not even related to a crime at all. It's a false positive. So that's pretty significant. And then, do we want more than the local police department? We already talked about the data being shared. Do we want that? That's a question that needs to be answered by the policymakers with consulting privacy watchdog groups and citizen groups. Now, there's a group here. I just learned about this in researching for this show. There's a local Bakersfield group called the Anti-Capitalist Computer Club. Have you heard of this? I've never heard of them before. Apparently, they're opposed to the big companies, the big data companies. I'm assuming Meta, Google, these kind of giant businesses that have a lot of our data. They're against those kind of capitalist enterprises. And they claim that through a public records request, they obtained BPD records showing more than 1 million rows of raw plate search data. And they want to have those audited. They didn't exactly specify what that audit would mean, but they're asking the city council to audit that data. What does it mean to audit the data, by the way? Well, what are you looking for? I don't know what exactly they're looking for. Are they trying to get statistics similar to the ones in Los Angeles to find out how many false positives there are? Are they trying to make sure that the police are using this for legitimate purposes? I don't know. But now look, what about the other side? What about missing people? Maybe a senior with dementia who drives off and they don't know where they are. Maybe they don't even know when they are, right? And they're driving a vehicle and you're terribly worried about them? Or what if it's a runaway takes the car, or somebody steals your car, or there's a kidnapping and an Amber Alert? What about a bank robbery and they get a license plate number and they want to find out where that car is right now? The guy that robbed the bank is armed and dangerous. There are a lot of legitimate reasons that the cops would want this information. I think we can all see how that would be extremely useful, and I'm sure Chief Stratton will tell us about that when he comes in this afternoon. But there are some actual good uses for this information. This is like collecting DNA samples or fingerprints. So it's not all just about our privacy being violated. We've got to look at both sides of the debate before we draw that line. And then there's the issue about the constitutional considerations that are put in here. In what way is this being used? Should there be a warrant requirement to access the data? Has there been enough of a political conversation before we went ahead and installed these cameras? I don't know. I don't know if there are, but I don't know if that has been adequately done. We're having this conversation after the fact. They've already installed these cameras, and now that's when I'm hearing from people, what's going on with these cameras? Why do we have them? In my own practice, I think I've only encountered one case so far where the flock camera has been significant, and all it did was claim to identify my client's vehicle at an intersection that was nowhere near the scene of this accident that he supposedly was involved in. So I don't know if that is particularly useful to them, to the government. It might actually be useful to us on the defense side as exculpatory evidence. And I'd like to know, what kind of access would the defense have to querying this database? I don't have the ability to do a search warrant as a defense attorney. So the police have a suspecting, or they suspect my client is guilty of something, and they want to get into his social media stuff. They can go to his Snapchat or his Facebook or his Instagram account or whatever with a search warrant and get a bunch of data that may help them. And I don't have the ability to do that. And I could subpoena that data from them, but they routinely ignore those kinds of subpoenas, and then it's a big, expensive, complicated, and drawn out legal battle to try to fight your defense attorney against Meta's legal department to get them to comply with the subpoena. Good luck. They don't want to be dragged into every divorce and every child custody disagreement, which is what would happen if they were to comply with subpoenas. So anyway, not that they won't, but it's not easy to get them to do it. So, but with the police, they just plug in, they upload, they scan their warrant, they upload it. They have a law enforcement portal. They get the data the same day. It's very convenient. They make it very convenient for the police. So I would like to know what access do we have on the defense side to the flock camera data that might be exculpatory to our clients. All right. So let's talk about the constitutional questions that are raised. So in order to be familiar with those, let's talk about the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment protects your privacy. It says that you have a right to be secure in your person, your places, and your effects. So they can't come into your house, they can't search through your belongings or search your body in an unreasonable way. Now, the Supreme Court has interpreted this, and we have a bunch of safeguards in place. So to just summarize it, in general, the police need a warrant to search you. Now, there are some exceptions. If it's perhaps a dangerous situation, the officer might be able to pat you down for officer safety. And if they feel a weapon, then they can conduct a more intrusive search without a warrant to pull the weapon out of your pocket. Or let's say they feel something that's obvious contraband, like something shaped like a meth pipe or something in your pocket while they're patting you down for weapons. They can still seize that without a warrant. They can stop a vehicle, search it without a warrant if they actually have articulable probable cause, because a vehicle could drive off without your, with the evidence in it, even if they didn't have a warrant. So they have some exceptions to the warrant rule. They're in hot pursuit of someone, or if there are exigent circumstances, there's literally someone getting murdered inside the room, they can kick in the door and come in without a warrant to prevent that crime, and then still use evidence that they observe while they're in that room. So there are several exceptions, but in general, they have to get a warrant to do a search. And most of the time, the police are very careful about that because they would rather get the warrant and not risk it than do a warrantless search and try to justify it later. So there's generally a warrant requirement. So that's doing a search. Now, a search of your house, your car, your person. But what about your data? Like, what can they go into your phone? Well, your phone is a digital storage medium. So it's kind of like having a notepad written in a code that can only be interpreted by another machine. Yes, they have to have a warrant to go into your phone. So there are, what about your private data, like your Google account or your Facebook account? As I mentioned, they have to get a warrant to go into those things, and they very easily get those warrants, and they very easily get into that data. There are cases where the government has argued, well, no, that you voluntarily share your data with a third party when you allow Google or Apple to track your location. So we should be able to get that without a warrant because you already shared it. That's not true. You can have something you share privately with someone else and still have an expectation of privacy in that data, even if you shared it with a third party. And so they have to get a warrant to get that information. So how does that all apply to flock cameras and things that you do out in public? Well, we're going to go to a break here, and we'll talk about that for a few minutes before the hour, and then we'll have Chief Stratton come in and talk about Bakersfield's flock cameras when we come back. This is Clayton Campbell filling in for Ralph Bailey on The Ralph Bailey Show.
Kern Radio, News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230, KERN.
Did you know termites can silently feast on your home for 3 to 4 years before you see any damage? They can literally eat a bedroom wall in less than 2 years, causing major structural damage to your biggest investment. Don't wait for the evidence to appear. Ryan's Termite is running an early bird special. If you know or even suspect that you have termites, get on Ryan's schedule now for an additional 10% off our already lowest price. All work is guaranteed. There's no money down and no contracts. Plus, in most cases, you won't even have to move or tent your house. Protect your home and save. Call Ryan's today. That's Ryan's Termite. Control.com.
I'm not one to say I told you so, but I switched to Pure Talk over a year ago, and ever since I've been telling people there's no better wireless company out there. Well, a few months ago, a massive survey was conducted. 123,000 people were asked to rate their wireless carrier in 4 categories: coverage, support, data, and overall value. Well, the results are in. Guess which wireless company was the only wireless company to get 5 stars in every category? Yeah. Pure Talk. 5 stars, every category. To celebrate, Pure Talk is offering the first 3 months of any plan for just $15 a month, including their top-tier unlimited plan. No contract, no commitment, just a very inexpensive way to test drive the only American wireless company with 5 stars in every category. Just dial pound 250, say micro, and Pure Talk's U.S. customer service will take it from there. Again, pound 250, micro. And yes, I told you so.
If you're a local businessman and you take your IT seriously, there are 2 things that you absolutely need to do. One, you need to listen to the Ralph Bailey Show on Wednesdays at 3:30 when Jennifer and Ryan Van Alstyne, owner-operators of Adaptive Networks, come in, basically talking to business folks on what you should be looking for, what should be alarm bells when people are coming back and fixing the same thing over and over again. And the next thing you need to do is pick up the phone and call the Van Alstynes at Adaptive Networks at 241-0638. 241-0638. As I have talked about so often, we have teamed up for almost a year with American General Media and Adaptive Networks because as a radio station, we absolutely depend on our IT. So we had to go to a team that was reliable, competent, and has the best customer service in Kern County. If you're a serious business person, call the folks at Adaptive Networks at 241-0638 or hit them online at adaptive-net.com.
Are you looking for a hospital that truly cares for your health and well-being? At Good Samaritan Hospital, they provide high-quality medical detox, psychiatric services, and medical and surgical care. They accept most insurances, including Medi-Cal, Medicare, and Kern Family. They offer Kern County's longest-standing inpatient detox program with dual diagnosis that combines medical care and withdrawal management all under one roof. Learn more at GoodSamaritanHospital.com or call 661-215-7500. Good Samaritan Hospital. They care for their community.
Hey folks, Scott Cox here, host of the First Look with Scott Cox radio program. You are listening to the Ralph Bailey Show right here on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Clayton Campbell filling in for Ralph Bailey. We only have a few minutes left before the hour break here, so I want to give you a quick overview on some of the constitutional questions that are raised by the use of public or surveillance in public places. So basically, when we look at the Fourth Amendment and we see that we're we have a right to be secure in our persons, in our effects, in our places. What does that mean when we go out into public? Now, the Supreme Court has long ago found that you have no expectation of privacy in a public place. So you're walking around in public and a police officer sees you do something. That is not a violation of the Fourth Amendment because you didn't have an expectation of privacy when you're walking around in public. Now, if they walk up and they peek inside your bedroom window and they see you committing a crime, then yes, that would be a warrantless intrusion into your privacy. Now, if it's something that the officers can see in plain view from a place that they're allowed to be, then that is not an unconstitutional search. So the case that gave us that rule had to do with a plane flying over a field that had a giant marijuana grow in the middle of this field. And you couldn't see it from the street. You couldn't see it from any place driving by, but flying over at 1,000 feet, the officers were able to see it. And because they were legitimately allowed to be where they were, flying overhead, and they could see it, it was in plain view. They were allowed to use that information. It was not a violation of the Fourth Amendment. And when I say allowed to use that information, the penalty for violating the Fourth Amendment is generally exclusion of what you found from evidence. So let's say the officers do an unconstitutional search that violates the Fourth Amendment, then the fruit of that search cannot be used as evidence against the person that they're charging. So, they come into your house without a warrant, they find you have drugs there, they charge you with the drugs, and it turns out that they didn't have a right to come into your house, then the use of those drugs is suppressed. It's not allowed into evidence. And the reason they do that is not to help criminals get away with crime, but to create some kind of a penalty for the government violating the Constitution. If they violate your constitutional rights, they can't use the evidence that they gain by violating your constitutional rights. And so that's where all these cases come from. People will challenge the constitutionality of a seizure. So that's where these all come from. So let's talk about some of these cases. Back in 1983, there was a case where the police in Minnesota, they thought there was a man making meth. So they had a drum of chloroform that they got from a chemical company, and they put a radio beeper inside of it, and then they allowed it to be sold to one of the co-conspirators of the suspect. Now, they didn't make him buy it. They didn't plant it on something he already owned. They planted on something that they thought he would buy. He did buy it. Then they followed the car carrying the drum all the way to Wisconsin from Minnesota, and they found a meth lab at the place where the guy went. Now, the way the Supreme Court ruled on this, they said this was not a search. The person that was driving on a public road had no reasonable expectation of privacy in his movements from one place to another because he is showing those movements to anyone who cares to look. Now, the thing was, this was just a simple tracking device on something that did not belong to the guy at the time he purchased it. And so the court cautioned that there might be a different finding if the technology were different. So fast forward to 2012. United States versus Jones. FBI agents investigating a Washington, D.C. nightclub owner for drug trafficking stuck a GPS tracker on the undercarriage of his wife's vehicle while it was parked in a public lot. They had a warrant, but the warrant had some defects in it, so it was not a valid warrant. They tracked the vehicle for 28 days and collected more than 2,000 pages of location data. The court said that physically attaching a device to a car is a trespass on your property, so that is an unreasonable intrusion into your privacy. But tracking them for a month is different than tracking somebody for like a day or following them around for an afternoon. So that was one of the issues. Now we're running up against the clock here, so we'll get into more of this after we speak to Chief Stratton after the break. This is Clayton Campbell filling in for Ralph Bailey on the Ralph Bailey Show. Please call us later, 661-842-5376.
Kern Radio, AM 1230, KERN, 96.1 FM, K241CI, Bakersfield, an American General Media station.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Caswell County Sheriff Tony Durden says 3 people, including a suspect, are dead in a shooting at a house in Prospect Hill, North Carolina. The sheriff says all the victims were adult members of the same family.
Deputies arrived on scene, found multiple people who had been shot. I can confirm 4 people were shot. Three of them are deceased. One person was transported to Duke University Hospital with gunshot wounds.
Investigators are on scene conducting interviews. The state of New Mexico has sued the Department of Justice and Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres says they're seeking intervention from a judge in Washington, D.C., saying Blanche is stonewalling their criminal investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's activities at the Zorro Ranch.
We have been forced to file an action against the United States Department of Justice and Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche for their continued refusal to provide unrestricted and unredacted access to the complete Epstein file.
The Justice Department said it was withholding some information from New Mexico to protect victims' privacy and conform with court rulings about evidence. Abdul El Sayed has won Michigan's Democratic nomination for U.S. Senate in a victory for the party's leftist progressive wing in a battleground state. El Sayed narrowly defeated Congresswoman Haley Stevens and will face Republican Mike Rogers in November's election. A mixed day on Wall Street with the Dow up by 263 points, the Nasdaq dropping 221 with the S&P 500 lower by 12, oil near $75 a barrel. More at townhall.com.
Hey, John, why so glum? I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the 3rd time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this. Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career. Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. Mycomputercareer.edu, an Elite CompTIA certification partner. Financial aid is available to those who qualify, including VA benefits.
If you haven't switched to Pure Talk because you're not sure their coverage is every bit as reliable as Big Wireless, why not take them for a test drive? For a limited time, Pure Talk is offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months, including their top-tier unlimited data plan. No contracts, no commitments, just a great deal on a high-speed network with unlimited data from an American wireless company. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and let the savings begin.
From the KERN Newsroom, your live and local news update.
Firefighters are working the Buzzard Fire along Interstate 5 near the Grapevine. I'm Rob Archer. The fire started after a vehicle caught fire and it spread into dry grass. Some evacuation warnings have been issued. People near it should make sure they're signed up for the Ready Current notification system for the latest information. If you are driving, watch out for smoke, emergency equipment, and lane restrictions along the 5. The fire comes on the final day of the heat advisory for Bakersfield and other valley communities. The advisory remains in effect until 8 o'clock tonight. Temperatures once again in the triple digits with a heat risk ranging from moderate to major. Hot weather will stay with us through the weekend, although forecasters say some cooling could be coming next week. Cooling centers are open from 1 until 8 today. If you need a free ride, call 211. Nearly 60 workers at Bakersfield Memorial Hospital have been laid off. Dignity Health says financial problems forced those cuts. Now, nurses say many of the jobs were frontline support positions that help answer patient calls and assist doctors and nurses. The California Nurses Association said the layoffs could mean longer emergency room waits, delayed care, and more pressure on the workers who remain. Dignity Health says the cuts are part of an effort to keep the hospital financially stable. A Kern County Sheriff Sergeant accused of taking evidence from the department's property room won't have a preliminary hearing until October. Ryan Dunbier has pleaded not guilty to 5 charges, including burglary and weapons offenses. Investigators say he entered the property room while off duty. A later search of his home allegedly found drug paraphernalia and suspected narcotics. Dunbier has worked for the department since 2001 and remains on administrative leave. I'm Rob Archer in the Current Newsroom with news every half hour and when it breaks on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
To the rest, well, in a month from now, this Hollywood big shot's going to give you what you want. Too late. They start shooting in a week. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
The Ralph Bailey Show. News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230. KERN.
And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Call in or text to 661-842-KERN. That's 661-842-5376. Listen live at KERNradio.com. Now, the host you've been waiting all day for. Live from the KERN studio, here's Ralph Bailey.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Clayton Campbell, pinch hitting for Ralph Bailey on the Ralph Bailey Show here at KERN Radio. I have a special guest with me here in the studio, Bakersfield Police Chief Brent Stratton. Thanks for being here, Brent.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
And just so you know, there's a little bit of a role reversal. You're usually the one that asks the questions. So just to let you know, you're free to leave.
Yeah, it's like it's like normal with you though, man. You always ask me questions. I'm not able to leave. It's just like being in a courtbroom with you, man. Like
the last time I interviewed you, it was some kind of cross-examination. I don't even remember what it was.
There's just nobody here who's able to object on my behalf right now. This is a little bit problematic for me.
I've been looking forward to this ever since you agreed. And now somebody told me that you're a Rangers fan.
Texas Rangers. So growing up, I was a San Francisco Giants fan. Will Clark was my favorite baseball player. My room was littered with Will Clark stuff. Still one of my heroes. And then I was probably at 92-ish or 3. He went to the Texas Rangers, and I went with him. And I'd say they've been breaking my heart ever since. But 2 years ago, they brought me an immense amount of joy. Won the World Series, and now they're back to the Texas Rangers that I know.
Well, I went to a World Series game in Texas in 2011. I've been a Cardinals fan since I was a little kid.
Oh, don't bring that one up, man. My heart still hurts from that.
Well, I went to Game 3 where Albert Pujols hit 3 home runs in that game, and I got a chance to meet Colby Lewis.
Yeah,
Bakersfield's own Colby Lewis, who pitched for that Rangers club.
Another reason why you love the Texas Rangers. Always pull for Bakersfield guys, man.
Well, yeah, I do too, unless they're pitching against the Cardinals.
In Game 3 of the World Series,
yeah, he's still a little bit burned about that one.
Yeah, man, that one hurts. That dude, David Freese, man, he broke my heart in a lot of different ways with that home run. And Colby Lewis was fantastic. I don't know him personally, but Bakersfield, 2 degrees of separation, and we went to go visit spring training, and he took my boys and took them around and got them autographs and balls, and just amazing family memories that we've always had. So I've never had a chance to really thank him, but he was such a gentleman to us and so welcoming, and just made memories of a lifetime that I'll be forever indebted to him for, and how well he treated my youngest 2 sons, and just made so many great dreams come true at spring training one year. And so he's a hero in our family's books.
He's a great guy, and he's a Bakersfield guy. He's so Bakersfield when you talk to him. He's very down to earth. And aside from the fact that he's like this huge athlete,
he's a big man,
you wouldn't know. Oh, this guy's a pitcher, right?
Yeah.
And, they like those really tall guys for pitchers.
Big country,
and a great ball player. I tried to get him to play softball with my softball team. It's too far of a step down.
Yeah, he's like, no, man.
No, I'm not going to do that. It would have been cool, but no. So I asked you to come in here today because I want to ask you about these flock cameras.
Yeah.
And I've only had one case where we got any evidence from a flock camera, but I know that's kind of a newer thing, and
sure.
And they're around town, and I've heard a lot of concern from people complaining about them, and a lot of rumors that are probably not entirely true. A lot of people are speculating about what they can do.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe I should ask you some questions.
Yeah,
and
happy to talk about it.
Help enlighten us. So let's talk about this. For somebody who's never seen a camera, where would they encounter one in Bakersfield, and what exactly is a flock camera?
Yeah, so Flock it's a company. What they're automated license plate readers cameras, and we've been using ALPR cameras for 10 to 12, 15 years, something like that, probably within the department. Generally, they've been used in auto theft and auto theft recovery cases, but we had them mounted on patrol cars for a while, and you'd drive around to be able to look for stolen license plates. It's always been patrol officers. You get we call it a hot sheet of the vehicles that are stolen, and you'd write them down, try to remember the last 3 of the license plate. And so some of the best cops I knew is the best GTA hunters, Grand Theft Auto hunters, and they'd be looking for them, and they'd be trying to remember license plates. And so you'd go to briefing, Sarge would give out the hot list, and you'd look at it, and you're like, okay, there's 15 cars stolen today or whatever it is. You can keep my eyes peeled for all of them, but I'm going to try to remember the last 3 digits of the license plate. And just as they're driving around, they're just looking for license plates. And some guys got really, really good at it. It's essentially when the license plate reading cameras came out, that's essentially what they were. They were cameras that were always scanning license plates, and then it would notify you, hey, just saw a stolen license plate. It's, here's the car, here's a picture of it, and we'd be moving in that direction. Some local businesses had them and started installing them at that point. Private industries used them too. Like, it's my understanding, like people that are like recovering vehicles, the bank-owned vehicles and things like that have used them privately as well for vehicles that they own that they're trying to repossess and trying to locate. So it's technology that's been around for quite some time. But Flock is a company that makes license plate reading cameras, and so we do put them in publicly accessed areas. A lot of HOAs, businesses have purchased them privately as well. That's how the company started making cameras for HOAs and things like that. And they did start getting into governmental work as it relates to municipalities and police departments and counties to be able to see if it was something that could be used as a better way of technology to find vehicles that are wanted. So we do have close to 100 cameras that are spread throughout the city.
Now, I've seen a couple different numbers. That was my next question, actually. One of the numbers, there's a report that says there are 130 cameras in Bakersfield, but I went to the website that was the public transparency site for Bakersfield with Flock.
What'd you think about the website?
It was a basic website.
Very website. Yeah, I mean, did it have any of the information you needed? Was it useful or not really? Is there more stuff we should have on there?
Well, perhaps maybe some other people would have ideas on what they would like to see. Because
Sure.
I'm looking at the data, and it just tells you, it says that there are 400 cameras.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that's including all the privately owned
that's
cameras.
exactly right.
Is that what that is? Okay. But 130 of them belong to the police
Yeah,
department.
so we have the ability to ingest other people's cameras on there, right? So if you at your place of business wanted to install those type of cameras and you wanted the police department to be able to have access to your exterior cameras, you could enter into an agreement with the police department for us to be able to ingest those cameras to you. So for us, from a real-time information center perspective, there's value in that. Traditionally in policing, say we're at here at the radio station. If somebody's out breaking into my car right now, and I come out and the car's been broken into, I'm going to file a police report. The cops are going to come. By the time they're going to get here, they're going to say, hey, who took it? I don't know. They're going to come. They're going to knock on the door here. They're going to ask if there's any video surveillance they can watch. And somebody's going to say, yeah, hey, here's the exterior video of this. And hopefully that camera is good enough to be able to zoom in on a license plate. 9 times out of 10, it's not. If you spent your entire career looking at video surveillance of people, and oftentimes it looks like Sasquatch footage, right? It's grainy footage and it's not very good. It happens at night. These are higher quality cameras that are able to capture license plates for us. And so when this occurs, traditionally what would happen is it would then go to a detective. A detective is going to come and knock on doors, try to get this information, figure out what it is. Sometimes you see press releases that come out from the department saying, do you know who this, here's a vehicle, any information, please call the police department. What these do is it really starts to move things to more of a real-time response, where if we come out and say, hey, there's a vehicle burglary that happened at this location, the corner of Walk and Don't Walk. Hey, we have a camera at the corner of Walk and Don't Walk. Let's have one of our analysts that's in there go to that intersection, be able to see it, see if we can grab a screen grab of what occurred, the vehicle that's there, a license plate that's there, give it to the officers, have them start looking for that vehicle immediately, try to be able to identify that vehicle, recover the loss, clear a case. It allows us to be more efficient and more effective in our overall response and trying to develop to more of a real-time policing perspective.
Now, with these cameras, I understand that they're looking for license plates. They have the software that reads the images to read those license plate numbers. But is there a video recorded, or is it a still image only, or what kind of data is captured?
Yeah, it's a recording. It's a video recording there. It does have the ability to zoom in and capture a license plate, but we retain the video for 30 days. So after 30 days, it expires. So a good example is we had a case we did a press release on earlier in the week. By the time the report got filed, by the time it got to a detective was able to do the follow-up, be able to get some video from a store. We realized that this was in the path of what one of the Flock cameras likely would have captured. But by the time we're doing the follow-up and the detective's doing the follow-up, it's past 30 days. So we don't have the ability to go back and pull that video to be able to pull it up anymore. It's gone. It's been purged from the system. So we're not able to go back and do some of that follow-up. But it is a video that goes through there.
Of course, if it has evidentiary value, you save the video, right?
Yes.
So you would copy that to your case file.
Yes.
Now, that makes me think, if I had a case, by the time it gets to me, sometimes
it could be a year later.
Yeah,
probably.
we could be well beyond the retention period, so we wouldn't be able to go back and look at that if there's potentially exculpatory video.
That's right.
That's
Yeah, so getting
troubling.
towards exculpatory evidence, Public Records Act, some of those things, like it's an emerging technology. It'll be interesting to see, how that stuff shakes out.
Right. Of course, the server space necessary to hold all
That's
that
right.
stuff. I've had to go through, instruct my staff, any videos that are like more than 5 years old, just delete them off of our archive because I don't think I need 6 different angles
Sure.
of body cam footage of an interview of
Right.
somebody when the case has already been resolved for 5 years.
Yeah,
So-
no, for sure. These are all some of the areas that, as we're dealing with emerging technologies and some of the logistics associated with emerging technologies, and how do you retain it? How do you store it? How do you use it? How do you provide it? How are we getting it to the courts? How are we getting it to defense attorneys? How are we getting it to the district attorney's office? How are you getting it for PRA acts? There's all sorts of nuances associated with it for sure. So it's like I said, it's an emerging area of policing for sure.
Right. And I'm sure that best practices will be revised over time.
They are, right? And so best practices get revised, sometimes within working groups, sometimes it comes from the courts, right? Sometimes it comes via civil lawsuits.
Or legislation.
It comes via legislation. That's right. 100%. So, and you're seeing some of that legislation that's working its way through California now. And so I'm certain California never shies away from legislation on anything. So I'm sure there are
full-time legislature.
There will be legislation that will come from it too. And so it will grow and evolve just like every other police technology has grown and evolved, and the best practices around tasers have grown and evolved. The best practices around body-worn cameras have grown and evolved. There was similar conversation regarding red light cameras and the legality of being able to have red light traffic cameras, and do we want those? And they're recording, and they're always recording, and there's always having, how can we have access to that? And can you issue a citation when the officer actually didn't see it? They're reviewing it via video. These are the same conversations that have been occurring for decades. Flock just happens to be the newest version of that conversation. So we're open to it. I'm sensitive to it. I'm aware of it, and definitely listening to the different perspectives and what we can do to where we can allay some of those concerns. And there are some areas where it's undeniably effective. But if there's controls that we can put in place, then we should absolutely look at doing that, and I absolutely will.
Now, these cameras, I didn't know until you just told me now that they're recording a video.
Yes.
And then the video is not, it's not like it automatically zooms in on the license plate and only records the license plate. It's capturing the whole video and potentially the person driving the vehicle, right?
The
video captures the whole vehicle.
Yeah, there's not a facial recognition component to it as it relates to the person, but I do think there is a component of being able to see who's in a, as a vehicle's driving by, it can capture what's in the vehicle. Yes.
Right. So there'll be
depending on where the cameras are located. Very similar to, like, have you ever done any of the traffic stuff regarding red light cameras?
Yes.
And being able to, when a red light camera captures a person coming through the intersection, it's able to take a picture of the person who's driving the vehicle at that time.
Yeah, it's often a great shot of the person. What are we just thinking at that moment?
Yeah.
My own daughter got she got a driver's license and got 2 of those red light tickets within a month, but they addressed them to my wife, so we were able to get them.
You knew a good attorney, huh?
Actually, yes, Mark Bigger, he's and Paul Hartman, the best traffic ticket lawyers out there. But but what I guess what I'm getting at here is, it's capturing the recorded data. It's just a video file.
It is.
And then you're using software. There's software that's probably proprietary to Flock that scans the license plate. But there's other software that does facial recognition. And so if you were to take that same data and apply that software to it, you could actually use the facial recognition data if that data is stored somewhere.
I think it probably could be. I know I'm no software expert, and I'm certainly not a facial recognition software expert, but I would imagine it's not crazy to me to think that the technology doesn't exist to be able to take it. If you could take that data and apply that software to be able to leverage it and utilize it. I certainly think it's in the realm of possibility.
But that's not something you're doing now.
It's nowhere near what we have the capability of doing. We don't have the capabilities, or we don't have the software for it. We don't have the technology to do it. We don't do that. But in a hypothetical sense, could that hypothetically be done? Yeah, I do think it's possible.
I think this is probably a good time to take our break here. We'll come back in a few minutes. I'm speaking to Brent Stratton. This is Clayton Campbell filling in for the Ralph Bailey Show on KERN.
Kern Radio, News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230, KERN. Maxwell in the morning. good till the last mic drop.
Federal appeals court ruled the New Jersey's assault weapon law barring possession of a semi-automatic rifle is unconstitutional. The first time a federal appeals court has ruled that a state's assault weapons ban violated the U.S. Constitution's Second Amendment, so this could be a huge one for here in California. Things could be changing for us gun owners.
Weekdays 9 to noon, News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230, KERN.
Very excited about my weekend. I'm taking a friend who's only been to Casey Steakhouse once, and they were there for an event, so they didn't even eat, but they liked the ambiance. And I said, wait till you get a hold of one of the best steaks you're ever going to have. And I'm going to turn them on to the Stockyard next door on Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays, where they have live music on Saturday. We have a lovely young woman named Lottie that plays. And of course, Bobby and Jimmy are playing live music Tuesday through Saturday in the main restaurant. But again, the ambiance, the age, the restaurant's almost 90 years old, and no one could have ever believed that Cassie Biddle would take this restaurant to where it is now, advancing, adding on to it, just building up on the menu, where it's not just simply all about steaks. I told you about the lobster mac and cheese, the fish dishes, the chicken dishes, you name it. Chef Daniel's done an incredible job of expanding the menu. Where would you rather be than on F Street at KC Steakhouse, longtime sponsor of the Ralph Bailey Show?
Looking to refresh your home or business with a clean, professional new look? Trust the experienced team at Howling Painting. Family owned and operated in Kern County since 1978, Howling Painting has built a reputation for quality workmanship, dependable service, and attention to detail. From residential to commercial projects, interior or exterior painting, their team is committed to delivering beautiful results at competitive prices. Named Best of Bakersfield's best painting company in both 20.
Can you hear me? We had a caller that actually has a question about what you guys were just talking about when we come back.
Okay, sounds good. Sure team, you can feel confident knowing your property is in trusted hands. Call Howling Painting today at 872-0988 at 872-0988 or visit howlingpainting.com to schedule your free, no obligation consultation. Howling Painting, quality you can see, service you can trust.
We wouldn't be celebrating America 250 if it wasn't for a strong foundation set by the framers. Hamilton built America's financial foundation on sound money, later embodied by the gold standard. But we abandoned that discipline in 1971 and have seen inflation erode the dollar's value. What's the foundation of your savings? Is it gold or something that can be devalued? Hi, it's Dr. Ron Paul, and I encourage you to speak with my friends at Birch Gold Group about diversifying an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. Learn more by requesting a free info kit on gold IRAs. Just text the word SECURE to the number 989898. Let Birch Gold help you build your foundation with gold. Text the word SECURE to the number 989898. Text SECURE to 989898.
Hey, it's JR Flores. Catch my show, The JR Show, starting at 1 p.m. Now back to the Ralph Bailey Show on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
Welcome back to the Ralph Bailey Show. This is Clayton Campbell pinch hitting for Ralph Bailey today. Here in the studio with me is the chief of the police department for Bakersfield, Brent Stratton. Brent, before we took a break, we were talking about the technological capabilities.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, though, right now, Bakersfield Police is not using any form of facial recognition software to scan through the FLAC data. Is that correct?
That's correct. We don't have any facial recognition software. We don't have any desires, thought process, vision, future of it. There's no intended use, nothing on the horizon, nothing in a long-term vision, nothing that exists right now. It's not something that we have any interest in or any capabilities of using at all. Full stop.
Right now, it's scanning the license plate, making a log of that, and helping you find vehicles.
Yeah, and like I said, there can be video of what occurred.
Okay, terrific. Now we went a little bit long in the last segment. We're going to have a break in a little while, but okay. I understand we have a caller who wants to ask you a question and maybe add to this conversation. So go ahead and
Susan's on the line for you.
Susan, good afternoon.
Well, you kind of just answered my question, but I know hypothetically or theoretically or whatever, if you did do the face recognition thing and ever got to that point, would it be of a person that had their face in the database of a criminal, or would it be through the DMV?
That's a great question, Susan. I've not given that any thought because I've not gone down the facial recognition rabbit hole. I would imagine that with federal agencies, that software has to exist. Clayton and I were talking during the break of, when you go to the airport and you go to get on a plane, they're having you stand in front and taking a picture, and they're comparing it to something. I've never seen the other side of that screen. I don't know what TSA or HSI has about that stuff. So I would imagine there's some level of capability that already exists as it relates to facial recognition software, but that's not something that the police department has access to or leverages or utilizes. But I would think, like, for us, like currently right now, from a red light camera, if you're to go through the red light there at Coffee in Truxton, it's going to take a picture of you driving, and then the officers are going to see who the vehicle's registered to, and they're going to pull up your California DMV picture, and they're going to compare your DMV picture with the picture of you going through the red light, and they're going to say, yeah, the person looks like it could be that same person. And like in the case where Clayton talked about, where his daughter runs it and it's registered to his wife, and they pull it up there and it's clearly not her. There's no citation. It goes away. So this isn't it's not a panacea, when it's not a solution to everything. It's a tool that can help try to be able to solve crime.
Right. The technology is out there. I think when you're at
Certainly.
TSA, I think they're taking a new picture of you, and that goes into their database with every other picture they've ever taken of you at TSA. And they've got your driver's license picture and your passport picture and any other picture that's in a publicly available database to the feds. And that's probably what they're doing to make sure that you're the person that has that ticket.
For sure. I think that exists. And again, Clayton and I were talking off air. I was showing them, like, if you were to go, if you have an Apple iPhone, if you go into your pictures and you take a look at the pictures and you open up the pictures that are the photo app, and like the way mine is, it says it's library, which is all the pictures I have, and then it goes to collections. And when you go to collections, you scroll down and it shows people, and it has categorized people by the faces that are in there, and it has entered members of my family and their names that have multiple pictures in there. I've not created these albums. These albums have been created somehow or another by Apple or by whatever's there, and it's broken my wife's name, my youngest son, my middle son, my oldest son, and it's categorized all these pictures in there. I didn't create that. So clearly there's some level of software that's already in a very standard Apple iPhone that's looking at the faces that are in the photo album and are categorizing them in there. So I agree. The technology must exist. I'm but a simple policeman. I don't know about the facial recognition technologies, all the stuff that's out there. I know that AI and technology is rapidly evolving it's truly the new frontier from a technological standpoint, and the law is always going to be, ages behind that. But I do want to be sensitive to this. I do want to hear what people have to say. I do want to try to build in processes and protocols, because if we do have people that are misusing these things, we have people that have misused the systems that we've had for the entire 22 years that I've been here and longer. And when that happens, we discipline people, we fire people, we remove people. So if those things are to occur, then we absolutely want to take action to be able to correct those type of things. But there are legitimate law enforcement purposes that help to contribute to public safety associated with these cameras. But I want to make sure that if there's other things that we can do to protect civil liberties, to protect the constitutionality and people's privacy, I want to be able to do that too. There's a balance in there somewhere. This doesn't have to be all of one or all of the other. I think there's a way to make these things work.
Yeah. Now, I do want to ask you about the legitimate use of these, because we've been talking just about the potential abuses and some of the dangers. But we'll get to that after the break, because I don't want to compress that. But one thing you touched on, the facial recognition software, that is a software element. And I know I read an article about Ukrainian soldiers taking pictures of deceased Russian troops, matching them to their social media profiles, and sending the picture to their families to hurt the Russian home front war effort. So it's something the technology is out there, and the human imagination is limitless on how it can be used or even abused. So we're going to take the break here. We'll come back and we'll talk about the use that the Bakersfield Police has put these cameras to. This is Clayton Campbell filling in for Ralph Bailey on The Ralph Bailey Show.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Iran and Oman have moved closer to an agreement on the Strait of Hormuz. This comes after President Trump said a deal to reopen the critical waterway would be announced soon. The strait's closure has driven up global fuel prices. Meanwhile, new tensions have emerged in Lebanon as the Israeli military issued the first evacuation warning in weeks for some residents in the south. Abdul El Sayed has won Michigan's Democratic nomination for U.S. Senate in a victory for the party's leftist progressive wing in a battleground state. El Sayed narrowly defeated Congresswoman Haley Stevens and will face Republican Mike Rogers in November. The seat is pivotal to Democrats' chance of flipping the Senate. On Wall Street, the Dow by 263 points, the S&P lower by 12. More details at srnnews.com.
Kern Radio, News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230, KERN. Headlines from the KERN newsroom.
I'm Rob Archer. Kern County officials are reminding you not to put batteries, paint, or electronics in household trash. Officials say discarded batteries may have caused that garbage truck fire last week. Batteries can spark or catch fire when they're crushed inside the truck. The Bakersfield Special Waste Facility accepts batteries, old TVs, paint, light bulbs, pool chemicals, and other hazardous waste free from Kern County residents. Assemblyman Stan Ellis is behind a state bill that would make it faster to clear dead brush and trees in coastal areas threatened by wildfire. Supporters say it would speed prevention work, but the Sierra Club says it could weaken protections for native plants and animals. Firefighters remain at the Cassie fire near Highway 58 in Keene this morning. Equipment could cause some traffic delays. I'm Rob Archer in the Kern newsroom with news every half hour and when it breaks on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
Carpet Outlet Plus. Every day is sale day. No one can beat us, no one can touch us. You won't find better prices. Shop and compare, we don't care. Take a look our way and come into Carpet Outlet Plus. Every day is sale day.
Pet stains on your carpet? Carpet Outlet Plus has everything you need to make your floors pet-proof. With over 100 in-stock waterproof floors, Carpet Outlet Plus can solve your pet problems for good. We also stock over 50 colors of pet-perfect carpet. Call, click, or come by today for your free in-home estimate. Don't forget, for the do-it-yourselfer, we also offer free next-day delivery on all qualifying stock floors. And as a bonus, go to carpetoutletplus.com and apply for 12 months no-interest financing. Carpet Outlet Plus, 3.5 blocks west of 99 on Rosedale Highway.
Carpet Outlet Plus. Every day is sale day.
First Look with Scott Cox, mornings 6 to 9 a.m.
On the Thursday edition of the First Look program, it's not a Dr. Corey week, but we got more kids on bikes and fires everywhere, and we got election results. It's just, the world's gone a little bit crazy. We got news and traffic and weather. It's all happening 6 to 9 a.m. right here at News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
Hey folks, Scott Cox here, host of the First Look with Scott Cox radio program. You are listening to the Ralph Bailey Show right here on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
Welcome back to the Ralph Bailey Show. This is Clayton Campbell standing in for Ralph Bailey this afternoon. I have a guest here in the studio with us. This is Bakersfield Police Chief Brent Stratton. Thanks again for being here.
My pleasure.
Now, before the break, we were talking about some of the concerns people have about the data retention, what exactly is captured. I think we have some good answers on that information that's very helpful. What I'd like to know from you is give me some examples of situations where the data collected from the flock cameras has been helpful to an actual investigation.
Yeah, one that comes to mind is, unfortunately, we had a homicide very, very recently, and it was a shooting that initially occurred in the Oleander area, and we're able to get a similar vehicle, a description, and started searching the cameras that identified a possible vehicle, which got us to a license plate, which helped us to be able to track the vehicle and track the location where it was going. And utilizing that and some additional investigative techniques, we were able to coordinate with the Las Vegas Metro Police Department, who was able to help us with apprehending this person 5 hours after the shooting occurred. And unfortunately, that person succumbed to their injuries here within the last within the last couple of days, and that was an aggravated assault that's turned into a homicide. But that's one example. We've used them for auto thefts. We've used them in being able to help identify vehicles associated with missing people, that families that reported people that are missing, and vehicles have been located in other areas and other cities. We do share the information within the state. It's not something that we share with any federal agencies. We don't share it with FBI, DEA, HSI, ICE, anybody like that, but we do share it within the state. And so sometimes criminals don't just commit crimes in that same jurisdiction. Oftentimes they can travel. And so being able to see where a vehicle has been in other areas has been helpful to us in a variety of other investigations as well. But it saves investigative time. Our homicide detectives use them very frequently. And being able to look at parts of town that are highly traveled and being able to match vehicle descriptions and suspect vehicle descriptions to be able to track down paths and routes before an event and after an event. And so they've been used and leveraged in a variety of different investigations. But the biggest value for us has come in homicide-related investigations.
Well, as from my experience, you guys have to do a lot more work. I mean, there's only so much you can do. You have only so many officers, and there's so much crime. Right. You can't, it's not like on the CSI where you see them, getting DNA off a toothbrush in a petty theft case, right? Right. You got to allocate your scarce resources accordingly. So in these homicide cases, I can imagine, because you guys pull out all the stops, you do all the work. Right. Then that's where it would be the most useful.
Yeah, and for us, for our city, people have to remember too, like the way our city is geographically laid out, we are a very large city. People don't think that. We think of Bakersfield as being this small city. It covers 160 square miles. There's 430,000 people that live just within the traditional city of Bakersfield, not to mention the Metro Bakersfield, the people who technically live in the county but live in the Bakersfield area. And so it's the 9th largest city. It's a big area. There's a lot of ground to be able to cover. So to have an officer at every location, it's not feasible. I don't have 1,000 officers like they have in Fresno. I don't have 10,000 officers like they have in Los Angeles. I don't have 40,000 officers like they have in the New York Police Department. I have 500. And then to figure out how we're going to deploy that 24/7, 365, how we're going to deploy. Before I came here, I was talking with our traffic officers, and we don't have enough officers to help be able to deal to handle some of the issues that we're facing in traffic. And our officers that work in impact and our homeless enforcement, we don't have enough officers here. The officers that work in the gang unit, I don't have enough officers here. The detectives say, I need more detectives over here. So trying to figure out scarce resources, we are looking at technologies and how we can leverage technology to be more efficient with the resources that we have, to try to be responsive to our budgetary limitations, to try to be responsive and stay, fiscally responsible with what we're having. So we are looking at ways to leverage technology to make us more efficient while still being effective in providing for public safety and seeing crime reductions.
Now, we talked about this a minute ago, but I just want to remind people, I mentioned before you got in here that the two main uses for the flock camera license plate data. One is you have the hot sheet, which is just like what you were describing, where the officers are looking for specific license plates. So this is a machine that helps them do it more efficiently. Yes. And it actually turns every officer into a license plate hunter.
It does.
It'll pop up. And then you also have the ability to go back when you're doing an investigation,
yes,
like the one you described with the homicide victim.
Yes.
And you're looking for a particular license plate.
We're able to do it in a real-time capacity, and it didn't have to be detectives that were doing this. This is officers and clerks who are happening, real time right now, being able to then zero in on this and figure out a path of travel and where they're going, and seeing that, that they're going in a certain direction, and then being able to coordinate some of those resources and that response has been very helpful.
Now, I think we also discussed the limitation on you hold on to this data for 30 days.
Correct.
So it's got to be something that's promptly used. And then now let's talk about accuracy. I saw a report that LAPD canceled the use of these cameras because 1/3 of the hot list triggers were false alerts. They were not the correct car. Have you heard anything about that?
No, I watched an interview that the chief did where he was talking about the data and controlling the data and not knowing what a private company was doing with the data on the back end of it. I think that's a valid concern. I think that's something that we've spoken with Flock about, and we have some assurances from them that they're not using the data. But I'm not the CEO of Flock. I don't know exactly what the video is or isn't being used. I've read criticisms about the ability to have a system being able to be hacked, and I think there's a possibility for some of those things. But hacked to what end? To then be able to get a license plate or a picture of a vehicle. Those are some of the things I'm trying to understand and to be able to work through. And those are things I'm listening to be able to hear. So I don't know the ins and outs of it regarding LAPD. I'm not here to say that like this is the end all be all. This is, that it's bulletproof or any of those things. I'm listening to what the concerns are, and when I hear those concerns, I want to educate myself and learn about it a little bit more, and I want to work through those things. So I'm very much listening to the public feedback in what we can do to try to instill, confidence in the public as it relates to this topic.
Now with Flock, they are a private company, as you mentioned. The only assurance we have that they comply with that 30-day retention period or any retention period is just their agreement to do so. Is
That's
that right?
correct. Yeah, that's correct. And so this isn't software that's developed by the Bakersfield Police Department. I don't have the skill set to be able to develop this. I don't have the technology. I don't have the people. I don't have the resources to be able to develop something like this. So there is a growing relationship with a public-private partnership. And I've heard for years and decades people talk about how the private sector is so much more efficient than the public sector, and how the public sector wastes money and the private sector has all these things figured out. So you're seeing the public sector partnering with the private sector for some of these efficiencies. And then, kind of we're hearing the criticism, hey, we shouldn't be partnering with the private sector on these things. Like, there are cutting edge technologies that are coming out of the Silicon Valley area, and there are these things that are coming, and we're looking to leverage those technologies and these emerging technologies to be able to see what the public sector has to offer that can make us more efficient, more effective in what it is that we're doing. And so that's what we're exploring.
Yeah, I think the concern that a lot of people have is that even though in good faith we reached an agreement with them, so you sign a contract, say with Flock,
Yes.
and they agree they're only going to retain your data for 30 days.
How do we know?
And yeah, they're just retaining your access to the data for 30
sure.
days. How do we know they're not giving it to Department of Homeland
For sure.
Security or ICE or whatever?
I think that's an extremely fair point. And you can say, well, I don't know what's happening. So because I can't say with certainty, and I don't have the ability to audit their own records, is that enough reason to then say we're not going to use it because of the other benefits and the things that we have? That's really the question that's before us.
And it's probably beyond the purview of the police department. I mean, that would be like maybe the attorney general of the state sues them to get that information.
To be able to get that access. And those are some of the things that legislatively it may come down to. And that's where, some cities have said, we're going to go away from that. But I don't think those cities that have gone away from it, I don't think they're going away from the technology. They might be going away from that specific company, but I don't know that they're going away from the technology. I think it's really important to make sure that people understand that Flock is a company. They don't own automated license plate reader technology. There's a variety of different companies that are out there. So Flock has kind of become the public face of that, and that's okay. But doing away with Flock doesn't really make this conversation go away. It's a conversation of how do we want government using the AI technologies that are out there. And I think more than ALPR, it's a variety of other areas. We should absolutely be looking at the ethical rules, and responsibilities that government has as it relates to developing and the use of AI. I'm all for that. I want to work on that as well.
Speaking of which, okay, I know that sometimes it's easy to be the Monday morning quarterback or the armchair general.
That's your role,
right?
That's your role, and that's the responsibility. That's what accountability looks like for us. We have to be accountable to that.
But I mean, when you have conversations with, I'll talk to people that are politically like-minded, and we'll talk about political theory. So I don't know if you heard any part of the show before you got here, but we were talking about John Locke and other political philosophers who talk about the balance between security and privacy, or security and liberty. Do you, are there situations where you're, with other higher ranking officers at the department, and you're sitting around a box of donuts, and you're
I see what you did there,
and you're talking about things like political philosophy and the balance of security versus liberty? I mean, are these conversations that you have, or is that kind of you agree, hey, we're going to operate within the rules that are given to us by the civilian authorities?
No, I think there's absolutely philosophical conversations that occur, and you have those conversations. You told me with people who are politically like-minded, but I would tell you, you're probably having those conversations with people who also enjoy talking about philosophy. There's people within policing that enjoy talking about the philosophy of policing. There's other people that are really only worried about the operational execution as it relates to philosophy. They'll say, stop talking to me about the philosophy, tell me what we're doing and what you want to do, and let's go out and catch bad guys. So yes, we should absolutely be having conversations about both. And so there are lots of philosophical conversations that occur, making sure that we are staying within constitutional boundaries. These are not being happening in people's homes. There are, we do, contrary to what people are saying, we are concerned about privacy, but in a public space, in a public setting, I don't believe there's Fourth Amendment considerations as it relates to what's happening in a public space. So, we can have those philosophical conversations, and they're probably going to involve, attorneys such as yourself and constitutional experts to be able to make those determinations. And there's a process for that stuff to occur. And when the police department needs to be, reined in, the legislature does that, and the courts end up doing those things too. And I think that's probably the future where we're going, similar as what's occurred in other policing technologies.
And the courts are weighing, are chewing on this stuff right now.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm told we have another caller.
Yes, Mark is on the line for you. He has a question.
Okay, we've got Mark on the line. Mark, welcome to the Ralph Bailey Show.
Hey, gentlemen, I appreciate the conversation. I'm enjoying it. I caught the latter end of it. My question deals with the use of radar on the streets. And you'll see like a motorcycle officer and he's shooting radar down Ming Avenue or something like that. So I'm part of the Neighborhood Watch program. And I said, well, aren't there things like portable trailers that would have radar that could take a picture of the license plate, the individual, and get the speed, so they could put these trailers in various neighborhoods to try and catch people? Is there something like that?
There is, and it's currently illegal in California. So
that's what he said.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why?
Well, there's some legislation about that too. We've explored it, and it's just currently not allowed. It's my understanding the legislature is allowing some testing in a couple different cities. To be transparent, I told them I was interested in being one of those cities. We weren't selected, but it's similar technology to the red light cameras. You would just be applying it to speed, but the law in California does not allow for that. We do have mobile trailers that we do move around. Whenever we get complaints about speeds in certain areas, we do move a trailer around. The trailer does capture data. It captures the speeds of every vehicle that comes by, and it records those speeds. We take that data, we take a look at it, and then if we see, yes, it in fact does appear that there's speeding that's occurring there, then we send a motor officer out there to do enforcement that is in compliance with the law. It's something that they are physically seeing, they're observing, and then being able to make enforcement action based on that. So again, it's just one of the areas that the law and technology are not aligned at the moment. Who knows where it will go, but currently it's not allowed for speed enforcement.
And that's more of a political question too, is really what is the tolerance of the community for the degree of enforcement that would be necessary to stop all speeding, right? I mean, we could, like we discussed earlier, you can stop all crime if you put a camera in everybody's house and you had a police officer will following everybody around. It's like you put the entire community on felony probation, like they do in China, where they will just monitor everything you do. Then you could eliminate a lot of crime, but you would also eliminate a lot of freedom.
I agree.
In some states, you can't even pull somebody over for speeding if you have an unmarked car. It's inadmissible. The radar is inadmissible if you're in an unmarked patrol car. So you see these highway patrolmen in the middle of the freeway, fully marked vehicle, and they're still getting people.
You're seeing it in some cities in California that are saying you're even in a marked vehicle that you're not, that's not enough of a reason to be able to stop people. You're having a variety of conversations regarding pretext stops, and is having a legal reason to stop somebody still a good enough is it still legal to be able to stop them if you have your subjective intent is that you want something else out of that stop, but you're using a legal reason to be able to conduct a stop. And some cities are saying that their officers can't do that. And you have some portions of the state that are attempting to legislate away traffic stops for those type of reasons. So there's a variety of legislation doing a variety of different things. Everybody, I would like to think, is operating. Hopefully, I'm trying to assume positive intent for everybody, that they're looking out for freedoms and liberties and those things. And so, look, we follow the rule of law, and where the law says we shouldn't go, then we don't. And like I said, this is going to be part of the conversation of trying to be effective and efficient with resources and trying to look out for public safety. But we absolutely want to stay within the confines of the Constitution, and we're absolutely going to stay within the confines of the law.
All right. Well, I think we're going to take one more break here before the end of the hour here. So you've been listening to the Ralph Bailey Show. This is Clayton Campbell pinch hitting for Ralph Bailey. I've got DPD Chief Stratton here with me. We'll be back shortly.
Kern Radio, News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230, KERN.
Meet Paul Sheldon's client, Dr. Roland Rodriguez.
Hello, this is Bakersfield General Surgeon Dr. Roland Rodriguez, client and friend of Mr. Paul Sheldon. It is my great pleasure and privilege to relate to all of you my absolute exemplary experience with Team Paul Sheldon. I have also referred a number of my colleagues to Paul Sheldon's office, only to receive the most stellar feedback from my doctor friends regarding the office's expert navigation through the complex maze that is Medicare. And even though Paul Sheldon himself is now facing some temporary health challenges, his longstanding and most experienced and expertly trained team of ladies, Christine, Kelly, and Lynn, continue to masterfully guide the clients through the complicated world of Medicare. You most definitely could not possibly do any better than to reach out to Paul Sheldon several months before turning 65. Thank you.
When Medicare matters, our team has the answers. Team Paul Sheldon.
398-2298. Man, I love this place. I've been surfing here since I was a kid. Now, seeing my grandson out on the water, it means everything to me. Watching him and taking in the blue waves, the sea breeze, the blurry horizon.
If you have geographic atrophy, or GA, subtle changes in vision could mean it's progressing toward irreversible vision loss. Izervay is proven to slow GA progression and could help preserve your vision for longer, so you may keep seeing the world around you. Izervay, or avacincaptad pegol, is an eye injection. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may cause blood in the white of the eye, blurred vision, or a temporary increase in eye pressure. Do not drive or use machinery until vision has recovered after an eye injection or exam. Ask your retina specialist how you can slow your GA with Izervay. To learn more, call 1-855-IZERVAY or go to izervay.com. Paid for by Astellas Pharma.
Veterans and active duty service members. When your call to service ends, your mission doesn't have to. Go from GI to IT in just a few months at My Computer Career. Prepare for a high-demand career in cybersecurity, protecting people, systems, and institutions from real cyber threats. Cyber warriors are needed now. Will you answer the call? Go to mycomputercareer.edu/CWP to learn more. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP. An Elite CompTIA certification partner. VA education benefits are available to those who qualify.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. But at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited everything for just $35 a line. That's $35 a month for unlimited talk, text, and data. Switch to the carrier ranked #1 in network coverage and customer satisfaction and get unlimited everything for just $35 a month. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit Consumer Cellular online or in-store today. Price includes $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. Taxes and fees apply. Data speeds reduced after 35 gigabytes. Rankings done by 2025 ACSI survey.
Hey, it's JR Flores. Catch my show, The JR Show, starting at 1 p.m. Now back to the Ralph Bailey Show on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
Welcome back to the Ralph Bailey Show. This is Clayton Campbell filling in for Ralph Bailey. I have Bakersfield Police Chief Brent Stratton here with me. I'm told that there's another call. Is that right?
Yes, Brian is on the line. One last one.
All right, Brian, welcome to the Ralph Bailey Show.
Hey, gentlemen. Great conversation. Got a question for the police chief. You also head up the traffic division. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I'm responsible for everything that every Bakersfield police officer does. And so traffic is one of the areas I'm responsible for also, sir. Yes.
Okay. Well, this is more about the infrastructure.
Yes,
I live near the intersection of Ming and Gosford, and I routinely head west on Ming and need to make a right-hand turn onto Gosford going north.
Okay.
And so there's currently 3 lanes that you can move through that intersection through
Correct.
traffic. But I'm wondering, what would it take? Who would I contact to
For a
make
storage lane?
Yeah, a right-hand turn lane there, because time and time again, I'm backed up
backs
there,
up
and there's
for
got to be
miles.
25 or 30 cars, and then the guy in the front of the line, he wants to go.
He wants to go
straight
west.
to the intersection.
Yeah, he wants to go west, so it's blocking everybody that needs to go north. I think it's a great. I think it's a great point. So when I look at traffic, I look at from the 3 E's: education, environment, enforcement. The police department's really involved in enforcement. We want to be involved in education. The environment is not something that we do generally. It's public works within the city that does traffic studies. There's people much smarter than me that come from a background of design and engineers and traffic engineering, and going along with state standards as it relates to roadway design stuff. I'm happy to be able to take that and to be able to share it with them. I don't know what exactly goes into it. I'm tasked with the enforcement of it and the flow of traffic, but I don't get the authority to design where stop signs are going to go, where red lights are going to go, how wide traffic lanes are going to be and where storage lanes go. That is something that comes from engineers within the city, but it is something I'm happy to take your concern and pass it along, sir.
I recommend you talk to your city council member, because they're
voice.
very responsive to their constituents. And, they're, in fact, tonight they're talking about reducing traffic lanes to make room for bicycles. Now, I'm not going to put the chief on the spot here, because that's kind of a political question, and that wouldn't be fair to him to throw him into that conversation. But you need to talk to your city council members about that, because they do listen to their constituents. They are concerned about getting reelected and doing the right thing, and creating more traffic jams is not the solution.
I know the city of Los Angeles went through that, and on, of all places, Santa Monica Boulevard, they put a bike lane in and reduced the auto traffic to 2 lanes, and it has been an absolute mess. People are just hating it.
And I would wager in Santa Monica, there are a lot more people on bicycles than there are in Bakersfield.
I would too, and I would like to take a second just to echo what Clayton said. Your council members do listen to you. They are responsive. Each and every one of them cares about their constituents, and there may be disagreements where things go politically, but each and every one of them cares tremendously about the city. They put in a tremendous amount of time and I'd also like to recognize and highlight the fact that they put this time in and they volunteer it. This is a non-compensated position. They spend their time volunteering their own time to be able to try to make things move a little smoother. I do think there's a scenario where cars, people, and bikes can coexist, for people to be able to get around that want to ride bikes. There's ways for people to be able to walk safely where they want to go. There's places for cars to be able to get to where they need to go. I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can make this doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. There's a way to be able to make it work for those that want to ride bikes to work and ride bikes to be able to ride bikes and to be safe. There's a way for people to be able to drive their vehicles and to get home and to work in an efficient manner. And that's what we want. And part of that is going to be, we're going to have to slow down in how fast that we drive in our community.
Well, one quick last question. If I am in that lane, and a police officer sees me, can I get a ticket for being in there? For green zone?
If you're not on a bicycle.
Yeah, if there's no bicycle, I think it's just good to be able to stay out of the bike lane. I'd have to take a look at it myself. I don't work in traffic at the moment, but I can get some answers for that regarding whether if there's not a bicyclist in there, is a vehicle allowed to be in there. I think the way that they're marked is that you should stay within the lane and outside of that bike. But I've seen it myself where sometimes in order to make a turn, I have to briefly cross over that to be able to make a turn into a storage lane. So there's some of those areas where you may have to travel into it. But as a general rule, I think it's best to stay away from the
I got to tell you, Chief, I don't see a whole lot of bicyclists in those lanes. And I'm a cyclist myself.
No,
that's I don't either. But if you build it, they will come. Maybe we have it set up, and maybe more people end up using it. So
well, that's the debate for the next hour. But I appreciate you calling, Brian. I only have the chief for like another 30 seconds or so.
All right.
So thank you for
Thanks,
calling
I
in.
appreciate it. Bye-bye.
All right, one last question for you before we go. Okay, there was some organization complaining that we need an audit of this data.
Yes.
Do you even know what that means?
It does. We do have an audit process. You can follow it on the website. We do have an audit policy. We have a procedure. We have a whole division within our department that audits everything. Audits traffic stops, arrest, use of force, body weight. I believe that's where we're going with modern policing. Audits, inspections to ensure that what we're doing the right thing. And when we find officers that aren't, We discipline them, we correct them, we train them, and if need be, we remove it from the organization. So I'm aware of it. We do it. I'm all for it. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. This is Clayton Campbell filling in for Ralph Bailey.
1230 KERN. 96.1 FM, K241CI Bakersfield, an American General Media station.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Authorities say a man who was arrested at President Trump's Los Angeles area golf course has pleaded not guilty to all charges, including several felonies.
The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department says 38-year-old Janine John Taylor was taking photos and video and had a 16-round magazine with ammunition in his pocket. Authorities recovered a loaded pistol in his car. Taylor was arrested Sunday after appearing to monitor security preparations at Trump National Golf Course, 2 days before the president's fundraiser there. Investigators searched Taylor's home in Downey, California, and found several firearms, magazines and ammunition, body armor, and a notebook that contains what authorities describe as concerning statements. I'm Mike Hempen.
There was a close call in the sky involving the president's helicopter.
Investigators are looking at why a plane was allowed to take off as President Trump's helicopter approached. Marine One had left the White House with the president on board and was approaching Reagan National Airport near Washington Tuesday. It's an apparent violation of safety procedures put in place after last year's mid-air collision between an airliner and an Army helicopter in the same area. In this case, the airplane that took off was climbing above Marine One as the helicopter approached, so the two aircraft were not on a collision course. The FAA says the air traffic controller was in contact with both the commercial pilot and Marine One pilot at the time. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Crews have taken advantage of cooler weather to begin getting a handle on wildfires that have displaced tens of thousands of people around Washington State's second largest city, but hotter, drier, and windier days lie ahead. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 263 points, the S&P 500 lower by 12. More at townhall.com.
The following is a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
When I was feeling the stress of too much credit card, I looked at two different options: debt settlement and debt management. They may sound the same, but guess what? They're not. Debt settlement seemed like a quick fix, but I found out it would destroy my credit, create tax headaches, and hit me with huge fees. They actually told me to stop paying my bills. No way, not me. Then I turned to a debt management plan developed by the team at Trinity. They worked with my creditors, lowered my payments, reduced my interest, saved me thousands, and paid off my debt. And Trinity is a Christian company, which is important to me.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976.
My name is Heather. Please forget debt settlement and remember Trinity Debt Management.
1-800-990-6976.
From the KERN Newsroom, your live and local news update.
Firefighters are battling the buzzard fire along Interstate 5 near the Grapevine. I'm Rob Archer. It started after a vehicle caught fire. The flames spread into some roadside grass. Some evacuation warnings have been issued. People near the fire should make sure they're signed up for Ready Current alerts for the latest information. Drivers should watch out for smoke, fire crews, and changing traffic conditions along the 5. Nearly 60 workers at Bakersfield Memorial Hospital have lost their jobs. Nurses say the cuts include frontline support workers who assist doctors and nurses and respond to patients. The California Nurses Association says patients could face longer emergency room waits and delays in care. Nurses also warn that fewer support workers will increase the workload for those who remain. Dignity Health says the cuts are intended to protect the hospital's long-term financial health. A $27 million project will bring affordable apartments and a new senior center to East Bakersfield. The project includes 36 apartments for seniors, along with meals, classes, health programs, and other services. Construction's already started with a completion plan for February of 2028. A former Cal State Bakersfield basketball coach sentenced to 4 years in prison could be released within just a year. Kevin Mays got credit for 660 days when he was sentenced last month. His exact parole date will be set after he goes into the state prison system. The heat advisory for Bakersfield remains in effect until 8 tonight. Temperatures are again expected to reach triple digits. Cooling centers are open until 8. And Kern County officials are warning people not to put batteries, paint, or electronics into your household trash. Discarded batteries are suspected of causing a recent garbage truck fire. I'm Rob Archer in the Kern newsroom with news every half hour and when it breaks on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
To the rest, well, in a month from now, this Hollywood big shot's gonna give you what you want.
Too late. They start shooting in a week.
I'm gonna make him an offer again with you.
The Ralph Bailey Show. News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get
5376. Listen live at KERNradio.com. Now, the host you've been waiting all day for. Live from the KERN studio, here's Ralph Bailey.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Clayton Campbell filling in for Ralph Bailey on the Ralph Bailey Show. 842-5376 if you want to join us. I have something special for you.
Oh.
They called him Dow. He hated it. But he was named for his father, and his father was named for his father. So to avoid confusion at family events, he got the short end of a middle name, Dow, D-O-W. He was born in Evanston, Illinois, August of 1953. Eisenhower in the White House. The Cold War just beginning to get cold. His father was a businessman, the kind who had to own whatever gadget came out next. His mother was an actress, tall, slender. She once played leading lady on stage opposite a young comic named Harvey Korman, years before America knew that name. Between the two of them, that boy learned a couple things. He learned how to be an American and how to survive a childhood that swung between too much supervision and none at all. He lived in Chicago, in Pittsburgh, and in rural Michigan. At school, they taught him to duck under his desk in case the Russians dropped the bomb. They also enrolled him in a speed reading class. And that's where this boy found the crack in the system. The grade was not based on how fast you read. It was based on how much you improved over the semester. So on the first day of testing, while the other children read as fast as they could, he read slow, very slow. And by the end of that semester, no child in the classroom had improved more than he had. Best grade in the class. He may not have learned how to read fast, but he learned how to read the rules. He was a bit of a handful. One semester at school, he had to spend the entire semester in the hallway. His desk was moved out of the classroom because his teacher couldn't stand the sight of him for even another minute. And then there were the pigeons. One day on the way home from school, he caught one in the park. He brought it home. He kept it in his bedroom closet. And then he began to worry that a bird all alone must get lonely, so he brought home another, and another, and another. Newspaper on the floor, birdseed in a dish, a closet full of pigeons. Until one morning, while he was at school, his mother heard something moving. A rustling sound. Maybe even the sound similar to a boy's voice. Something moving in the closet. She was certain he was playing hooky, so she went to that bedroom. She couldn't find him. He wasn't under the bed. He wasn't behind the door, and she heard movement behind the closet door. "What are you doing in there?" she demanded, and she threw open that door. As you might imagine, she spent the rest of that day shooing pigeons out of the house. Well, he got older, he got taller. He became a very good basketball player, good enough in high school that a college brought him in to keep playing. And because it was that decade, he got curious one summer about hippies. He stuck out his thumb and hitchhiked to Oregon and spent a summer living on a commune. It was a campsite in the woods. No one farmed, no one built anything. Once a month, they'd all pile into an old bus and drive down a dry creek bed into town, to collect their welfare checks. They would cash them at the general store, load up on canned food and cigarettes and booze, and they'd drive back up the mountain. That was the harvest. Everyone and everything on that mountain belonged to everybody, and every bit of it had been paid for by somebody else. There were children up there. Any woman would feed any child, and people called that beautiful. But not one of those children could have told you which man was his father. So Dow came home from that summer knowing more about human nature than any economics textbook was ever going to teach him. He went back to school, and somewhere in there, he committed his life to Christ. And then he met a straight-laced Baptist girl, and that was that. They married, and a baby was on the way. Now, nothing turns a hitchhiking hippie into a grown man faster than a wife and a baby on the way. And a grown man with a wife and baby on the way needs one thing desperately: health insurance. He found an employer that would cover anything, no questions asked, no pre-existing condition, too pre-existing. He joined the United States Army. They sent him to Germany, 2 hours from the communists. Not the Oregon kind, but the kind with tanks and MiGs and AK-47s. The Army took his independence. The Army took his long hair, and in exchange, they gave him jump wings and a Green Beret and 2 sons. In 1979, they told him he was going to Iran to help secure the American embassy in Tehran. The mission was scrubbed. Days later, the embassy was overrun, and every American inside it was taken hostage. He was supposed to be there. The Army wanted everything that this man had, but his family needed it. And so he chose his family. He moved them to a small town in rural Illinois, went to work in a machine shop and learned electricity. He learned everything there is to know about it. 3 more sons came, 6 children in all, 1 daughter, 5 boys. He got the boys up at 4 o'clock in the morning to throw newspapers in the Midwestern dark in cold that hurts your teeth because people were counting on those papers. He got them up early to read the Bible. He had them in a pew every Sunday. And he worked his way up until the young man who once hitchhiked to a commune, who once jumped from airplanes, was now a successful salesman of industrial electrical equipment. He taught his boys to always work, to never quit a job without another job lined up, to be steady, to be responsible, to be there. He taught them to love their country and their family and each other. And above all of it, to live a life that would glorify God. And with their mother, he showed all 6 of them what it looks like when 2 people simply stay in sickness and in health, in plenty and in want, through the good years and the hard ones. He's still teaching that lesson today. This year, he and that Baptist girl marked their 51st anniversary. He watched his oldest granddaughter get married, and he got the news that grandchild number 17 is on the way. He's 73 years old today, and he still goes to work at an electrical power plant, and he still takes care of his wife. He likes classical music. He likes Motown. He likes his steak well done. He likes cheesecake, and he likes the Three Stooges. He doesn't answer to Dow anymore. These days, he goes by Clay, but I just call him Dad. Happy birthday, Dad. When Ralph asked me to cover the show on August 5th, I thought, that's my dad's birthday. He gets up so early in the morning to go to work that by the time I get up on West Coast time to get ready for work, he's already been at work for a while. And he comes home in the afternoon, and he's in bed by the time I get home from work. So I have to find just the right time to call him and tell him happy birthday. But, he's a grown-up, and he's been a grown-up for quite some time, so celebrating his birthday to him is not really the biggest thing. But it's a big deal to the rest of us in the family because we're very proud of him, and we love him. So, Dad, I think you're listening on the streaming. Hopefully you are. Hope I'm not keeping you up too late since you've got to get up at 3 in the morning. But happy birthday. I'm proud of you. All right, now, that was a little bit off of the topic that we chose for the day, but I couldn't pass it up because it is my dad's birthday and it's a special day. Before we, I don't know if you're just joining us, you've missed 2 hours of riveting conversation about privacy, security, the use of flock cameras, and when we get back from this next break, which we're a little bit maybe a little bit early on it now, but we're going to discuss some of the constitutional issues that are implicated by the use of flock cameras and the Supreme Court cases that have interpreted those constitutional principles. This is Clayton Campbell filling in for Ralph Bailey. If you want to join us after the break, call us at 842-5376 or send us a text message. Thank you.
Kern Radio, News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230, KERN. First Look with Scott Cox, morning 6 to 9 a.m.
On the Thursday edition of the First Look program, it's not a Dr. Corey week, but we got more kids on bikes and fires everywhere, and we got election results. It's the world's gone a little bit crazy. We got news and traffic and weather. It's all happening 6 to 9 a.m. right here at News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230, KERN.
Hey, this is Terry Maxwell. You know, one thing I've never enjoyed is painting. It takes time, patience, and real skill to do it right. That's why when it comes to painting my home or business, I trust the professionals at Howling Painting. Howling Painting is family-owned and operated right here in Kern County and has proudly served our community since 1978. They were even voted Best of Bakersfield, Best Painting Company in 2025 and 2026. Whether it's residential or commercial, interior or exterior, Howling Painting delivers top-quality work at competitive prices. Their team is dedicated to exceptional service and results that exceed expectations. And they don't consider the job finished until you're completely satisfied. Plus, they're fully licensed and insured, so you can feel confident your property is in the good hands from the start to the finish. Get a free, no-obligation consultation today at Howling Painting. That's HALLING.com or call 872-0988. Howling Painting, quality works you can trust.
When I hit my 50s, I felt like things were slowing down.
This is Sandra's Metamucil story.
I started taking Metamucil for digestion, but had no idea it would impact so much more. Not only did Metamucil help me feel more regular, but my heart health saw the benefits too.
Metamucil, one simple routine, 4 health benefits. Digestive health starts here. Go to metamucil.com for more details.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You've still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight illnesses like pneumococcal pneumonia and RSV. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and can help protect you from getting really sick. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. See more at PfizerForAll.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Man, I love this place. I've been surfing here since I was a kid. Now, seeing my grandson out on the water, it means everything to me. Watching him and taking in the blue waves, the sea breeze, the blurry horizon.
If you have geographic atrophy, or GA, subtle changes in vision could mean it's progressing toward irreversible vision loss. Izervay is proven to slow GA progression and could help preserve your vision for longer, so you may keep seeing the world around you. Izervay, or avacincaptad pegol, is an eye injection. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may cause blood in the white of the eye, blurred vision, or a temporary increase in eye pressure. Do not drive or use machinery until vision has recovered after an eye injection or exam. Ask your retina specialist how you can slow your GA with Izervay. To learn more, call 1-855-IZERVAY or go to izervay.com. Paid for by Astellas Pharma.
Hey folks, Scott Cox here, host of the First Look with Scott Cox radio program. You are listening to the Ralph Bailey Show right here on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
Every step you take, I'll be watching you.
Welcome back to the Ralph Bailey Show. This is Clayton Campbell standing in for Ralph Bailey. You know, I always use the term pinch hitting because I know Ralph is a huge baseball fan, and so am I, and evidently so is our police chief, Brent Stratton, who was in here in the last hour. I do want to talk a little bit about baseball, but I'll save that at the end of the show because I want to wrap up this thought on the flock cameras and give you some constitutional issues to think about. Before Chief Stratton came in, we talked about the Fourth Amendment protecting us from unreasonable searches and seizures. And what does it mean to have an unreasonable search and seizure, and how you don't have an expectation of privacy in public. And then the question has become, well, with new technologies for the government to be able to monitor us in public, what limits are there, if any, on their ability to follow people around in a public place, considering the fact that we don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy in public? And that same question is raised when people have objections to the use of cameras like the flock cameras or the traffic cameras or automated speed detection devices that'll write you a ticket for, based on a radar reading without a human being being involved. So let me go through a quick survey of some Supreme Court cases that have to do with these particular constitutional principles. We already talked about United States versus Knott in 1983 case. This is the one where the officers put a tracking device on a barrel of chemicals that was then purchased by a suspect, and then they followed the suspect using the signal from the tracking device, and the suspect led them to a meth lab. And in that case, the Supreme Court had held that because the guy doesn't have an expectation of privacy, he was driving down the road, anybody could see him driving down the road, they were allowed to follow him, and the tracking device was a low-tech device that wasn't really the main thing here. It's not like they attach it to his vehicle. They attached it to a product that he didn't even own before he owned it, and then he purchased the barrel. So the Supreme Court allowed that. And then in the 2012 case, United States versus Jones, FBI agents were investigating a nightclub owner. This is the one where they attached the tracking device to the car that belonged to the wife of the nightclub owner, and then they tracked her for 28 days, collected more than 2,000 pages of location data. Now, they had a warrant originally, which to me is kind of a big confession by the government that they needed a warrant because they went and got one. But it was an invalid warrant because the way they described it was like in the wrong jurisdiction. They messed up on some technicalities in the warrant, and so it wasn't they were not following the warrant's instructions. And so in that case, because of the vast amount of data and the fact that the court actually says that this is an unconstitutional search because physically attaching a device to somebody's car, that's a trespass to your property. Remember, the Fourth Amendment gives you a security or privacy in your effects. That includes your vehicle. That's one of your effects, one of your things. And they gathered a lot of data everywhere she went during that time. Then we had a 2018 case called Carpenter versus United States. So there was a string of robberies at Radio Shack and T-Mobile stores in Detroit in 2011. So the police arrested 4 men. One of them told on himself. He confessed. He handed over the cell numbers of his accomplices. And the prosecutors then went to a magistrate, not for a warrant. There was some kind of a lesser court order under a federal statute to get phone records. And they got the cell tower records for a guy named Timothy Carpenter. That's the named party in Carpenter versus United States. And so they got those records from Metro PCS and Sprint, and that produced 12,898 location points covering 127 days. That's 101 pings per day. So if you're not familiar with cell phone tower pings, let me give you a quick overview of how that works. Every time you use your mobile phone to access the internet, to send or receive a text message, to make a phone call, there is a log that is kept by the cell phone company. And the log tracks which tower was used for that connection to the network, and not just which tower, but which antenna on the tower. So usually these towers have 3 different sectors. Each sector covers a little bit more than 120 degrees, so they overlap at the edges, but they're facing different directions, so they get all points of the compass. And generally speaking, the antenna that has the strongest connection to your phone signal will be the antenna that picks up the call. So it's very important to the police when they're trying to figure out if you were in the area of a crime. Let's say there's a shooting in a particular shopping center, and they have a suspect. They get a warrant for the suspect's cell phone records. The cell phone company sends them the list of records, which includes a list of cell phone towers that are identified by serial numbers and a list of pings. that where your phone made some kind of communication with that tower, either uploading or downloading to get text messages, receiving a phone call, sending a phone call, and then it tells the officer which tower and which antenna relayed that. And then what they do is they use a piece of software with a map, and then they map out the locations of these towers so they can kind of visualize it. And then, of course, later on, show it to a jury so the jury can visualize. And then what we see is we see a general direction, and what it can tell us is roughly the area where a phone may have been at the time of the crime. They also have advanced technology they can use where they do a survey, where they have a vehicle driving around simulating a cell phone, pinging the towers, trying to figure out which tower would pick up a call at which location, because there are a lot of things that affect which antenna on which tower is getting the strongest signal. So those are the things that are that's how that they use the cell phone data to figure out where you're. It doesn't tell them exactly where you are unless you have some kind of location data where it's using GPS. But generally speaking, just using your cell phone, they can figure out roughly where you were. At least they can put you in the neighborhood, and it can be very compelling evidence to a jury. So that's why they wanted this information for these guys in this robbery, this string of robberies. They got 12,898 location points in this Carpenter case over 127 days. That's an average of 101 pings per day. At trial, the government put maps in front of the jury, placing his phone near 4 of the robberies. So in that situation, when they did this without an actual search warrant to get his data. So his lawyers, of course, objected to this. The court disagreed, allowed that into evidence on appeal, which eventually made its way up to the Supreme Court. The court said, no, this is a search. Police need a warrant. You have a privacy interest in the whole of your physical movements, even though each individual movement happened in public. So that's interesting. You don't have an expectation of privacy in public, but if we're going to track all of your movements, then you do have a privacy interest in that. And so it didn't matter that the phone company and not Carpenter held the records because he had entrusted that information to the third party with an expectation of privacy. So Carpenter versus United States, that was a case for the defense. Now, another reason that's important is the number of, and if they had just gotten one piece of data, maybe we'd be closer to the Knotts case, and you would have a more of an argument if you were the prosecutor that you could use that. All right, now there's another case. This is a 2021 Fourth Circuit case. Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle versus Baltimore Police. Now, in this case, this is a Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. This is a federal appeals court. This is not the U.S. Supreme Court. But in this one, Baltimore, the city of Baltimore, had a private company, fly a camera-equipped plane or multiple planes over the city. And their system covered about 32 square miles, photographing roughly 90% of Baltimore every second for about 12 hours a day. So 90% of the city was photographed every second for about 12 hours every day. Images went to ground stations where contractors analyzed them, and data was kept for 45 days and longer if needed for a case. So people and cars appeared as blurred dots, but once analysts figured out which dot was which, they could rewind and watch that dot move across the city for weeks. So in this situation, even though people are in public, this was held to be a search because the aerial data is what enables deductions from the whole of individuals' movements. Police can't access it without a warrant. The court was careful to say ordinary security cameras on city streets are still fine, but this was different because the scale and ability to go back in time and look at what was happening. Then we get to June of 2026. This is a brand new case from the United States Supreme Court. This is the latest word on this. A man robbed a credit union in Midlothian, Virginia in May of 2019. He threatened a teller, brandished a gun, and left with $195,000 in cash. Police almost had no information. They had a surveillance video showing that the robber approached from a nearby church corner while apparently on his phone. So they got a geofence warrant ordering Google to identify every phone within 150 meters of the bank during a 1-hour window. Google turned over anonymous data on 19 devices, and the police narrowed it to 9, then to 3, and Google gave up the names. One was Chattree, who was the party named in the case. Under the Supreme Court's majority, 6-3 majority, this was held to be a search. Justice Kagan wrote, the majority opinion, getting someone's Google location history is a Fourth Amendment search. So these are the cases that lead us to the conversation we're having regarding the use of flock cameras to gather information. If they're using it to focus on you specifically, or if they gather enough of it, they probably have to have thousands of cameras instead of 130, then it would be a violation of the Constitution. As it stands now, it's not. All right, we're going to go to a quick break. This is Clayton Campbell pinch hitting for Ralph Bailey on The Ralph Bailey Show.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. A California man who was arrested at President Trump's Los Angeles area golf course was pretending to be part of the security detail preparing for Trump's visit and had a stash of illegal weapons in his car and home. Janine Taylor's initial appearance in downtown Los Angeles federal court Wednesday was canceled. Iran and Oman have moved closer to an agreement on the Strait of Hormuz. This comes after President Trump said a deal to reopen the critical waterway could be announced soon. The strait's closure had driven up global fuel prices. Meanwhile, new tensions have emerged in Lebanon as the Israeli military issued the first evacuation warning in weeks for some residents in the south. On Wall Street, the Dow by 263 points. The Nasdaq dropped 221. More details at srnnews.com.
Kern Radio, News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230, KERN. Headlines from the KERN Newsroom.
I'm Rob Archer. Firefighters are battling the buzzard fire along the 5 near the Grapevine. A vehicle caught fire. The flames spread into dry grass. An evacuation warning was issued for a nearby area. If you live in the area, stay alert for notifications from Ready Kern. If you're driving, watch for smoke, emergency equipment, and possible lane restrictions. The heat advisory remains in effect until 8 tonight, with Bakersfield again expected to reach the triple digits. Nurses are warning of longer waits and delayed care at Bakersfield Memorial Hospital. Nearly 60 workers were laid off, with Dignity Health saying it's due to financial problems. And the Kern County Sheriff's Sergeant accused of taking evidence from the department's property room will have his preliminary hearing in October. Ryan Dunbeer has pleaded not guilty to 5 charges. I'm Rob Archer in the Kern Newsroom with news every half hour and when it breaks on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
You like playing around in the kitchen? Well, you've got to check out on Instagram Luigi's Restaurant and Old World Delicatessen vignettes. Tiny little vignettes, many of them with Gino showing you how to cook different dishes with some of the elements that are in the delicatessen. Now he's got some of the other personnel doing it as well. They're incredibly well done, and they can break down some of the great stuff that they do right at Luigi's. And again, if you're a foodie, the delicatessen's got to be your first stop. I mean, they've got everything. I've got some of the Luigi stuff in my kitchen. I use it when I cook as well. And again, I've told you about the deli, the merchandise, the merch for kids coming up for birthdays or anniversaries or whatever. And then check out the patio. The misters are out there. It's a wonderful afternoon. Where would you rather be? But again, stop in the deli, say hello to Lynette, try one of her Italian wines. Where would you rather be than at Luigi's Restaurant and Old World Delicatessen, longtime sponsors of the Ralph Bailey Show.
First Look with Scott Cox, morning 6 to 9 a.m.
Again, the hoodlum kids on the bicycle. You realize that's the whole idea, right? This is a plea for attention. Every time you make a video and then you put it on social media and everybody watches it, those hoodlum kids win. Because that's all they're looking for is the views. And however dangerous and stupid a thing has to be for them to get their clicks, they're going to do it.
News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
Hey, it's JR Flores. Catch my show, The JR Show, starting at 1 p.m. Now back to the Ralph Bailey Show on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
Welcome back, radio friends. This is Clayton Campbell, pinch hitting for Ralph Bailey on the Ralph Bailey Show. This 3 hours goes by fast. I'll tell you what. You know, I don't know how. I mean, it's obviously a full-time job to have to prepare a 3-hour show every day. So
it's a lot.
Yeah, I get a new respect for these guys that do this, because just to first of all, to have enough stuff to talk about for 3 hours. Now, you know, I've never been accused of not having anything to say, but usually there's kind of a back and forth. So that's why it's great having a guest like Chief Stratton coming in here so we can have a conversation. That hour just seemed to fly by.
Oh yeah.
So if you want to weigh in, if you want to call in, feel free. Our number is 842-5376. I promised that I would talk about baseball in a minute, but I want to finish the constitutional questions that have to do with flock cameras. So the bottom line is these flock cameras, as they're being used now, are constitutional. I believe. I don't think they're going to. The Supreme Court will strike down their use or limit it the way they're being used now. The way that Chief Stratton described, there are only a handful of these cameras relative to the size of the city. So if you're driving in certain areas, your license plate would be captured. It's not held for a very long time, and they're not tracking everything that goes on. So the Baltimore case, I think, is very very helpful because you see these airplanes flying over the city. Imagine if the city of Bakersfield had a fleet of aircraft constantly patrolling the skies, recording everything that goes on in the city. And then when they're trying to figure out, okay, there's a crime that occurs in one part of town, let's say one of the shot spotter microphones picks up some gunshots. So now they go back and they look at everything that happened in that area because they've got it all being recorded. They take a picture every second, then they can track the movements of people. They see what houses they go into. That's where the Supreme Court said, now that's a search because it's just, they're surveilling literally everything. So I see some inconsistency here, and as I think it was Justice Sotomayor who observed that the Constitution doesn't have like a warm-up period where, well, we allow a certain amount of intrusion into your privacy without a warrant, but then once it gets to be too much, now you're in violation. So there have to be rules that first of all, that people can expect to have their privacy protected, and there have to be rules that tell the police what the limits are on these protections. So, and then the limits on the use of these tools. So that's something that I think is still yet to be determined. And as the technology improves and as the technology develops, we're going to have more cases that go to the Supreme Court. And I belong to this club, this public speaking club, and we'll give speeches about different topics, and usually they're things that the guys in the club are interested in, like whiskey or fighter planes, pocket knives, diesel engines, things like that. When AI tools were starting to become really popular, I gave a speech about AI, and the gist of it was, look, throughout history, we've developed tools to assist us because every person has a limited amount of time. We have a limited amount of strength, and we have a limited amount of intellectual capacity. So virtually every invention that's been created by man has been designed to get us more time, make us stronger, or make us smarter. For example, just think about writing. Before writing was figured out, you had to remember every piece of information. If you forgot it, you no longer had access to it. It was gone forever, unless somebody you knew had that information. And look, we all know how unreliable memory can be. So the invention of writing revolutionized the intellectual capacity of mankind. And what about tools? You want to gather firewood. Well, once they figured out how to build an axe or a saw, they were able to use wood and build structures. And then eventually we developed other inventions, machines, bulldozers. How much more earth can you move with a bulldozer than you can with a shovel or with your bare hands, right? And then not only does it make us stronger physically, that saves us time, which we all have a limited amount of, right? There's only so much time. So when I look at AI, I see it as a way to help us improve our efficiency in a lot of different areas, just like any other invention, the invention of electricity, the invention of the internal combustion engine, the invention of the internet. And then now we're talking about the application of some of these technological tools in a field where our liberties are implicated. So we're talking about the police using tools. And Chief Stratton was talking about giving a list of license plates. Here's the hot list. I can't even imagine. It never really occurred to me. Well, how do they know which license plates to look for? I never thought that they would actually be actively looking for them unless it was like a murder suspect. I figured what they would do is if they happen to pull somebody over, they'd run the tag. Oh, the tag is this is a hot one or not. And so it was just kind of happenstance. But no, they're actually looking for these numbers and trying to remember them. So imagine how much more efficient that officer's job is if he's got a camera that's reading license plates and comparing it to a list. That's just one less thing he has to think about, or he or she has to think about on the road when they're also worried about, getting ambushed by somebody, or or watching for crime occurring, or somebody calling for help, or being able to respond to something quickly. So being more efficient helps us, helps the police, and helps society. When I say us, I'm talking about the city that's paying for these officers. We get a lot more out of an officer when we have a bunch of technological tools that make that officer more efficient than we would otherwise. We might have to hire even more officers. Maybe they'll have Measure M to increase the sales tax even more, so they can tell us that they need more police officers. So anyway, that's when we're talking about the application of the constitutional rules, to go back to these political, philosophical debates about security versus liberty, and where you strike that balance. The courts are trying to figure out, how does the Fourth Amendment, that was written in a time before electricity, obviously before the internet, before AI, before data centers, before facial recognition software, before we had all these tools that help people do the things that people have to do more efficiently, how do those rules still apply? Because the principles are eternal. The principles last no matter what the technology is. So we just have to figure out how exactly it applies in each moment. And I think what ultimately we're going to see police agencies that want to have a lot more of these cameras, and we're going to start seeing the use of a judicial warrant. So I don't know how exactly that would work when the city is paying a private contractor to hold all the data, and then they have to go get a warrant to go access the data. I don't know how that's going to work, but that might be what they end up doing, where they're required to have a third-party vendor hold the data with no one else having access to it, and then requiring a judicial warrant to go in there and query the data for the information you're looking for. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that. The technology does exist for facial recognition. They use it in China to put down and suppress political dissidents. They use it, as we discussed earlier, in Ukraine to identify Russians that they've killed in battle, so that they can then have a wage a propaganda war against the people of Russia. So that there are all these creative applications. The ingenuity of the human mind for application of tools is virtually limitless. It's amazing to see what people come up with. So if you have any comments on that, or you want to discuss a little bit further, call us at 842-5376 or send a text message. All right, so let's get into the promised discussion about baseball. Ralph is not here. I wish he were here, because I would love to talk to him about the newly invigorated debate about salary caps in baseball, because the Dodgers just picked up another amazing pitcher, another Cy Young winner, and another Cy Young candidate this year, another ace to add to their collection of aces. They have this starting rotation that's unbelievable, including now Tarek Skubal, who came from the Detroit Tigers. By the way, did somebody just? Oh,
no, someone just calling to give you a compliment that you're doing a great job.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm trying to get through, cram in this business about baseball here in the last 18 minutes, and this would probably take an entire hour to do it justice.
I was going to say, because you're in my wheelhouse here, Clayton, so I can help you on this one.
Well, what are your thoughts? You think there should be a salary cap?
Yes, 100%.
Like a stronger salary cap than what we have?
Yes, or I think a salary floor is already on the table, but unfortunately, when you look at everything that's already been out there, or at least the players talking about it, it's going to be a battle. The players don't want it, and that's really who matters in this conversation. I'm really starting to believe, though, that there is a conspiracy behind the scenes here, that they're purposely trying to break baseball through the Dodgers to force a salary cap, because if competition goes out the window because one team has everybody, there's a problem for the sport.
Well, obviously there does need to be competition, right? I mean, the Dodgers can't play themselves, right? They have to have other teams to play, and fans in other markets deserve to have teams that are at least competitive.
Right.
Now, I will point out to you, the Dodgers, as amazing as they are, they still lose games.
Oh, yeah, they're actually on a 6-game losing streak right now.
Yeah, and they lose games to teams that have a fraction of their budget. Okay, so there is more parity in baseball than you think.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The money doesn't automatically mean, but if you look at the last, I want to say 15 World Series winners, they all but one of them were in the top half of payroll.
Right.
Okay, so it certainly helps to be in the top 5 in payroll, but how do we make baseball more competitive while at the same time allowing players to be rewarded for their skills when in a market economy? Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, it's not a perfect market because it's a regulated monopoly. So you can't, a player who's an amazing ball player who wants to go play for somebody else can't. He only has 30 teams to choose from. And if those teams blacklist him, like who was the guy that used to pitch for the Dodgers?
Trevor Bauer.
Trevor Bauer, an amazing pitcher, could
Oh, yeah.
still be a major league pitcher. Nobody will touch him. Nobody will touch him. And he doesn't have an alternative. He has to go to Japan or Korea or to Mexico. There's no alternative in the United States because it is a regulated monopoly. They've kind of got protection from Congress, and they've had that for over 100 years as a monopoly. So what do? So you don't exactly have the free market principles, the market economy principles. You have to have some rules that are in there, and baseball needs to figure those rules out. So let me help explain to you things. I'll do this after the break that I just recently learned, some of the nitty gritty about how baseball shares its revenue and how it could potentially use that revenue sharing to become more competitive as a league and at the same time reward its players.
Interesting.
So I have a proposal. I wish Manfred would call me, but I don't think he will. All right, this is Clayton Campbell pinch hitting for Ralph Bailey. See you after the break.
Kern Radio, News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230, KERN. Maxwell in the morning. Good till the last mic drop.
Dr. Sam Woggood, transfer to the University of California at San Francisco, was asked, can only women get pregnant? And that was asked by Representative Mary Miller. You know what? He couldn't answer it. That's what I'm talking about, because everybody listening to me right now knows that only women can get pregnant in the human race.
Weekdays 9 to noon, News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230, KERN.
Let's be honest, money can feel overwhelming. Markets change, life changes, and most people are left wondering, am I actually on track? That's where MoneyWise comes in. We help people simplify the complex, make smart financial decisions, and move forward with confidence, without the jargon, without the pressure. Retirement planning, big life transitions, or just getting organized and knowing where you stand. And now you can find us in a new home, the historic Woolworths building, right in downtown Bakersfield. MoneyWise, clear advice, local roots. Learn more at moneywiseguys.com.
Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through LPL Financial. LPL Financial and MoneyWise Wealth Management are independently owned and operated.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-498-6548. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 five-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-498-6548. That's 800-498-6548. Tax Relief Advocates, real solutions for real people.
In 2026, Bay Alarm celebrates 80 years of security. For the Central Valley, that means local service including burglar and fire alarm systems, 24/7 in-house monitoring, and custom security designed to work with business operations. Bay Alarm has real people rooted in your community looking out for your business. After 8 decades and 3 generations of family ownership, our promise is still the same. We got you. Learn more at bayalarm.com.
In Kern County, valley fever affects more than 3,000 people each year.
But together, we can change that. Join Kern County Public Health as a Valley Fever ambassador. You don't need medical experience, just a willingness to help your community stay informed. Neighbors sharing with neighbors. Coworkers looking out for each other. Be part of the solution by signing up for a 30-minute virtual training. Visit kernpublichealth.com to learn more.
Hey folks, Scott Cox here, host of the First Look with Scott Cox radio program. You are listening to the Ralph Bailey Show right here on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Clayton Campbell. I'm pinch hitting for Ralph Bailey on the Ralph Bailey Show. We have about 10 minutes left in the program, so I want to talk to you a little bit about baseball. We've been discussing what it would take to make baseball competitive and fair to the players and fair to the owners. So the trouble, as I see it, is you have some organizations in Major League Baseball, some of the franchises, maybe 5 or 6 of them, are clearly just soaking up the revenue sharing money, and they're not putting it back into the team, and they couldn't care less. They don't need to put a good product on the field because they get so much money in revenue sharing. So they don't care about their fans. They don't go after good players. They squander their high draft picks, and then they never contend. And then you have teams that are trying. You've got teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Cubs and the Phillies and the Red Sox and the Blue Jays that are in your top 5 or 6, 7 clubs when it comes to the amount of money they're spending on their payroll.
Right.
Now, the luxury that those teams have is that they also are high revenue earning franchises. The Los Angeles Dodgers collected, according to Forbes, in 2025, like $850 plus million in revenue. And their payroll is about half of that. So other teams don't have the luxury of the Los Angeles market. Places like, like Kansas City, for example, or Cleveland, they're not huge markets. They don't have a lot of market revenue. They only have so much money to go around. But it is interesting how the portion of revenue that's spent on payroll is remarkably similar across baseball. It's just the revenue is disparate between the clubs. So here's something that I didn't know until I was doing a little bit of research on this yesterday, because I've been trying to figure out what would I like to see in a collective bargaining agreement between the teams and the Players Association, as far as what would make baseball more competitive, what would also fairly reward the players for their incredible skill and talent. It's after all, we go to baseball games to watch the players play. Yes. They really should be they should be paid for playing. That's who we're there to watch.
And 162 games a year warrants a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. When you have that many viewers, and people think, well, how can any athlete be worth that much money? Well, because you have millions of people to watch it, millions of people spend thousands of dollars on it, sometimes thousands each, which amounts to billions. There were, I think it was 2025 was $6.5 billion in revenue, according to Forbes. That was the estimate for Major League Baseball. That's a lot of money. Now, every club, without exception, takes 48% of what's called its net local revenue. So that's local revenue minus costs. And they put that into a pool. Now, so that's their TV revenue. So that whatever they get from their local TV contract, and also their tickets, merchandise, concessions, parking, all of it. You go to a Dodger game, you're going to spend $50 in parking. You buy a beer, it's going to be $20. You buy a hot dog, it's $17. I mean, everything is expensive. And here's why. Okay, the Dodgers have to take 48% of that and put it into this pool. Now, that pool gets divided equally amongst the 30 clubs. Now, the Dodgers, by far, put more money into that pool than any other team.
Oh, yeah, by far.
And it's not even close. I think the Yankees are second, and then the Cubs, and then I think it's the Red Sox. This is based on last year's numbers, because this year's numbers are not all in. Okay, so, and some of these are estimates because not all this information is public, right? So Forbes magazine has all the estimates. So what the Dodgers do is they take 48% of its local revenue, and so that ends up being hundreds of millions of dollars in the revenue that they put into this pool, and then they get about 160 million back. So every club gets 160 million, but the Dodgers put in like 400 million. Okay, so they're getting less back than they put in, and then of course there's the luxury tax. So if you're over the payroll limit, you have to pay a luxury tax that goes into or they call it the competitive balance tax. It goes into the Major League Baseball pool, and some of it goes to the smaller clubs, some of it goes to Major League Baseball specifically. So here's what happens. Assume that the revenue of the Dodgers is the $20 beer that you bought at the stadium. Okay, $20 beer at Dodger Stadium. About $8.39 of that $20 goes to players. $5.71 go to costs that nobody counts. So think about this, Chris. Maintaining a minor league system, you've got 5 minor league teams.
Yep.
You've got coaching staff at all those levels. You got scouting. You have all of your stadium employees, your groundskeepers, all that stuff, the taxes you pay on your property, all of that stuff. So if the Dodgers, they're spending $8.39 of that $20 beer on payroll for their major league roster, they pay $5.71 in costs that nobody thinks about. They just assume that's profit to the owners, but it's not. It's very expensive to run your minor league system. Now, $3.41 of that $20 beer for the Dodgers goes to the competitive balance tax. That's the luxury tax. And then $2.91 is what they call revenue sharing. That's that money I talked about. That half of the net local revenue goes into a pot and it's divided 30 ways. And then, so when you look at that, okay, that adds up to $20.42. So the owners on paper lost 42 cents on that $20 beer because they only sold it to you for $20, right? So the revenue doesn't actually cover all of it. Now, that's not to say that the owners of the Dodgers are not making any money. They're making some money. They're just not making hundreds of millions of dollars like they're some kind of tightwads, not paying their players. And now there are other teams where their payroll is extremely low. And by the way, every club gets about $60 million in revenue sharing from the national broadcast. So anytime there's a game on ESPN or Fox or streamed on Apple or streamed on YouTube or whenever, they sometimes have these streaming services that'll get access, that money is split 30 ways.
Right. Now, the Dodgers are kind of separated from that, though, because there is a clause after they went bankrupt where they don't have to share their television revenue, or at least the majority of it. I think they get to keep it like 95% of that.
They did have a chunk that they got to keep. It was
Yes.
60% of what they had to share in the year of their bankruptcy, but that's been scaled down every year since.
Oh, has it?
So
Okay,
they're
I didn't know
almost
that part.
they're almost out of the woods there. Yeah. So that's really where their profit has been, right?
Right.
Now, since we're running short on time, here is what I would propose, if it were up to me, to make baseball competitive, where you would have an incentive for the teams to try to build a good roster and to pay their players well, and an incentive to win, because that's really what you want. You want to make the team want to win, and you want to make the players want to win. Okay, so let's say you take 100% of the local TV revenue, because the TV revenue is the only thing that's kind of an accident of geography. Like the reason you get more revenue in LA is there's just so many more people there than there are in Kansas City, right? So you take 100% of the local TV revenue and you put that into the Major League Baseball pool that's split 30 ways. But let every team keep its own gate revenue and its own concessions and parking revenue, right? And the reason you do that is that you want to incentivize, the team wants to get people to come to their games, right? So you incentivize winning to get people to come to the games. Watching on TV is not the same thing, because you just don't have enough people to watch it on TV, but you could fill a 40,000 seat stadium in Kansas City, just like you can fill a 50,000 seat stadium in LA, right? And maybe just a lot easier in LA with so many more people, but incentivize winning by letting them keep their local payroll or their local receipts at the gate and the parking. Then that's the other thing. And then it's adjusted by the costs are adjusted. So LA has to put half of its revenue into its net local revenue into the national pool, even though they're paying LA wages, they're paying LA taxes, they're paying LA costs of goods sold and all that stuff, where Kansas City gets to pay Kansas City prices. So you would kind of even out the playing field, and then make a payroll floor that's a hard floor where you would forfeit your revenue spending if you went below the floor.
Which is being talked about. They want a salary floor for sure.
But it needs to be one where they're penalized by not getting the money.
Yes.
So all the money they get, if it's just above that floor, if they don't use it, they lose it completely. It's not like they can keep it.
Right.
And then finally, I think we should take the postseason, make a postseason bonus pool that is divided at each level. Right now, there are World Series shares for teams that make the World Series, but a bonus pool for the players themselves, and a bonus based on winning more than half your games at different stages of the
How
season.
well you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then it's a performance incentive. Now that's something that the Players Association doesn't want because they don't want it to be tied to, to the performance itself. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in today. This is Clayton Campbell filling in for the Ralph Bailey Show on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1230 KERN.
Kern Radio, AM 1230, KERN. 96.1 FM, K241CI Bakersfield, an American General Media station.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Abdul El-Sayed wins the Democrat Senate primary in Michigan, and now his Republican opponent, former Michigan Congressman Mike Rogers, is weighing in. Correspondent Laura Winters reports.
It was a narrow victory. Abdul El-Sayed winning by just a point. He calls Congresswoman Haley Stevens and then holds a news conference